The Strongest Sect. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451, Explosive Beating of the 4th Rank Martial King. Jun Changxiao broke through to the level of Sword and Martial Arts King. The discussion about this matter in various states and counties will definitely not stop. Many forces and big families will also begin to investigate who exactly is the person who broke through the level of Sword and Martial Arts King in Qingyang County. After enjoying the pleasure brought by the breakthrough, our sect leader Jun looked at the stunned Zhejiang County Martial Arts King in the grove outside the city. At the beginning, this person and Jiangzi were fighting in the woods. When the momentum of promotion spread, he was deeply shocked and had no intention of fighting. Elder Jiang hurriedly stepped on the cloud crossing step and landed on the tower. He happened to witness the whole process of 2 beams of light going straight into the sky. I won't say that I forgot that Jiangzi was still fighting with someone, so I was very witty to round it back. Old man, Jun Changxiao said, how about a fight between you and me? Because of the breakthrough of the Sword and Martial Arts King, he exuded the aura of a king while talking. Martial apprentices, martial arts masters, and martial arts masters are ultimately only at the middle and low levels. The king of martial arts is a huge watershed, and all aspects will change, including voice and momentum. The king of martial arts of Zhejiang County frowned. He would definitely not take a king of martial arts who had just broken through seriously. But, this is the newly born Sword and Martial Arts King. Who among the high-level masters of Xinjiang continent does not know that the combat effectiveness of the Sword and Martial Arts Kings is superior to that of the King of Martial Arts and the King of Sword? Swish! Jun Changxiao jumped up and flew out of the tower. The improvement of strength led to the improvement of his body skills. This jump gave people the feeling that he was about to fly. Step. He landed steadily in front of the King of Martial Arts and said, "Do you want to use your fists or your sword?" The corners of the King of Martial Arts of Zhejiang County's mouth twitched violently. If you use your fists, you are the King of Martial Arts. If you use a sword, you are the King of Sword. What the hell should I choose? This is the advantage of the Sword and Martial Arts Kings. You can fight in any way. Master Jun, the King of Martial Arts said coldly, this time, my Zhejiang County was defeated. I will take my leave first. Facing a Sword and Martial Arts King, he felt very guilty. No, Jun Changxiao said, you must fight me. If you win, General Tao can take you away. Don't fight. Force you to fight. Needless to say, when he finished the last sentence, the King of Martial Arts of Zhejiang County was immediately moved. This time, the mission of attacking Qingyang City was to protect Tao Yuan. Now that he was captured by the enemy, if he went back alone, he would definitely be held accountable. In that case, he made up his mind and said, today, I will meet the 2 kings of sword and martial arts. With fists or swords? Fists. The grove outside Qingyang City. Jun Changxiao and the King of Martial Arts of Zhejiang County were about 20 meters apart. Jiangzi was the only spectator at close range, and the disciples of the Tigu school were standing on the city wall and looking over from afar. Fighting with the King of Martial Arts right after the breakthrough. Sect leader Jun is really tough. Ziguancan said in admiration. Jun Chang smiled and said, can we start now? The Zhejiang County Martial King took a fighting stance and thought to himself, although this boy is a Sword and Martial King, he has just broken through. I'm a 4th grade Martial King, so I should be able to fight him. From the word should, it can be seen that he still does not have much confidence. There is no way. The Sword and Martial Kings are famous. It is really difficult to face a Martial King without an absolutely high grade one. Hoo. Jun Chang laughed and burst out his martial arts skills, and the powerful momentum spread instantly. The Zhejiang County Martial King hurriedly said, Master Jun, we agreed to use fists, so don't use the power of swordsmanship when the time comes. Jun Chang smiled and said, don't worry, I won't use swordsmanship to deal with a Martial King like you. The Zhejiang County warrior was immediately furious. You are a Sword and Martial King. You are awesome, but you can't look down on people like this. Hoo. In anger, he also burst out his martial arts skills. Although the momentum is also quite strong, Compared with Master Jun, there is a visible gap in momentum and purity. Jiangzi was surprised and said, Master has just broken through. Why is the cultivation released so strong? Because there are 2 spirit cores in Danshan. If they burst out together, it must be higher than a single spirit core. Jun Changxiao, who has 2 spirit cores, not only has a strong momentum, but also has strong endurance. Even if he has just broken through and is fighting the 4th grade martial king in front of him, he can use his magnificent spiritual energy to exhaust him. It can be said that our Master Jun not only has the advantage of the double king of sword and martial arts, but also the advantage of dual cores. This is definitely worthy of the word evil. Old man, Jun Changxiao said with a smile, this seat is going to take action. The more he said this, the more uncertain the martial king of Zhejiang County felt. Swish. Suddenly, Jun Changxiao rushed over with a cloud step, so fast that it seemed as if he had crushed the galloping talisman. Not good. The face of the king of martial arts of Zhejiang County also changed slightly. The next second, he blocked his hands in front of him, and a thick spiritual energy wall condensed around his body. Boom. There was a bang, and waves of air surged out. Jun Changxiao appeared in front of him, and his right fist with a force of 10,000 kilograms not only broke the air wall, but also hit his arm. It was vaguely visible that the space was rippling. Bang. Stare. Stare. The king of martial arts of Zhejiang County retreated wildly, and when he stabilized his body with difficulty, his eyes were filled with horror. The power of this punch was at least 2.5 million kilograms. He had just broken through, and he had such a terrifying strength. This person must be a super level king of martial arts. No, a super level sword king of martial arts. Swish. Jun Changxiao appeared in front of him again, and his big hand suddenly slapped over. It seemed to be a light-hearted move, but the power contained in it was rising steadily until it hit the right shoulder, breaking through to 3 million Jin. The Zhejiang County Martial King was only a high-level Martial King of the 4th rank, and his power burst was only 2.25 million. The whole person was directly knocked out and broke more than 20 trees in succession. Wow. After landing, a mouthful of blood spurted out. Ziguancan on the tower saw his mouth twitching violently. That was a genuine martial king, but he was beaten by the newly broken sect Master Jun. But, damn it, the Zhejiang County Martial King tried to stand up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and suddenly spread his hands, quickly pulling the surrounding heaven and earth attributes over. HMM. Jun Chang smiled and said, do you want to use your trump card? Whoosh. After a while, the heaven and earth attributes that came from all directions gathered in the palm of the Zhejiang County Martial King's hand, forming a brilliant light bowl condensed from 3 attributes. This is. Jiangzi frowned slightly and said, the ultimate high-level 3.2 and whoosh. The light bowl gathered in the palm of the Zhejiang County Martial King became more and more powerful. Jun Changxiao stood there indifferent, with deep disdain in his eyes. In the past, others looked down on him, but now he has entered the sword and martial arts double king, and he is looking down on a 4th grade martial king. Tread. Zhejiang County Martial King took a step forward and shouted with bloodshot eyes, 3.2 and whoosh. The energy ball gathered by the 3 energies in his palm suddenly blasted over with a strong force. For a while, the wind was blowing hard, and the grass and trees were flying. Ziguancan in the distance was shocked, and said to himself, if it were me, 10 lives would not be enough to die. Looking at Jun Changxiao again, he saw that he was still standing there, and his back was like a king standing high above. Is it going to take it hard? Chapter 452, Persuading Surrender. The 3-point gathering Yuanju is a very advanced spiritual power martial art in the extreme level. When a warrior uses it, he will extract 3 kinds of energy from the attributes of heaven and earth, thereby gathering powerful energy. This Zhejiang County Martial King has already realized the state of great success. After a simple accumulation of power, he will use it. How powerful it is, there is no need to form it by weight, so as to avoid readers' complaints. In short, the power is very strong, so strong that it flies over, and the big trees far away are uprooted by the strong wind. Jiangzi frowned. Although he has broken through the 3rd grade Martial King, and has practiced in the sect, and entered the extreme level, he is not sure to take this move head on. The head of the sect stood still. Is he going to take it head on? Swish. At this moment, Jun Changxiao raised his hand, and a strong spiritual energy permeated his body and quickly formed a substantial defensive gas wall in front of him. After breaking through the martial king, the use of spiritual energy will be more perfect, and functions such as this condensed gas wall will be developed. There is another very important function. Thoughts are transformed into spiritual thoughts, and everything around can be spied on. When the condensed light came, Jun Changxiao captured it through his spiritual thoughts. The strength of the power it carried was within his tolerance range, so he decisively transformed into a gas wall. Wu Wang, it's so cool. Whoosh, the 3-point Kiju shot along the grass, and finally hit the spiritual energy wall with a boom. The powerful explosion instantly formed a wave, and rushed in all directions. Flowers, trees, and stones were crushed into powder under the harassment of the terrifying power. From the direction of the tower, the nearly hundreds of meters of the area where Jun Changxiao stood were bare, and even the ground was cracked. Terrible. Ziguang sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, he was more concerned about whether Master Jun was okay. Gradually, the spiritual energy aura dissipated, and the collision area was clearly visible. The materialized gas wall still existed, and Jun Changxiao still stood proudly, with a smile that deserved a beating on the corner of his mouth. No. Impossible. The king of Zenin County widened his eyes. He had even released his trump card, but he didn't break the opponent's energy wall. How strong a spiritual energy could he have to do that? Is this the sword and martial arts king? Jiang Zi was also shocked. Yi Xingchen secretly complained. He has just broken through. He shouldn't have such strong spiritual energy. Even one of the former 10 martial emperors couldn't figure it out. Jun Changxiao waved his hand to remove the spiritual energy wall and said, the trump card has been used. Next, I have to be serious. After saying the last word, he stepped on the cloud stepping step and rushed away. The speed was so fast that the king of Zenin County didn't have time to set up a spiritual energy wall in front of him. In fact, it was useless to set it up. Under Jun Changxiao's 3 million jin of power, all he could do was to be completely defeated in a fancy way. Boom. 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 In the woods, the sound of fists rang out frequently. In just a moment, relying on his overwhelming strength, Jun Changxiao beat the Zenin County Martial King so badly that he fell to the ground with twitching limbs and foaming at the mouth. Everyone's mouth twitched. It was unimaginable that such a high and mighty Martial King would be beaten so miserably. Could it be that the Sword and Martial Kings were really that tough? They didn't know that Sect Master Jun could beat a 4th grade Martial King, not only because of the Sword and Martial Kings, but also because of two spirit cores. Although there would be no superposition and doubling effect, it also increased the strength a lot. For example, the 3-point Juan and Ju that just attacked. If Jun Changxiao had a spirit core, he could certainly resist it, but the air wall would definitely be broken, instead of being safe and sound. A battle between kings ended just like that. The Zenin County Martial King, who was beaten badly, not only did not take Tao Yuan away, but he himself inevitably became a prisoner. Qingyang City, on the parade ground. The surrendered Huey army soldiers all squatted together with their heads in their hands. Master, Zhu Ringui said, how should we deal with these people? If we can persuade them to surrender, then surrender. If we can't, then let Zenin County pay money to redeem them. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. A rising star with the talent of a great general, a genuine 4th grade Martial King, is definitely worth a lot of money. Zhu Ringui said, Tao Yuan is from a family of generals. It may be a bit difficult to persuade him to surrender. Jun Changxiao said indifferently, there is no one I can't persuade to surrender. If there is, then give him a bowl of fried rice, or 2 bowls. If that doesn't work. Zhu Ringui thought of the food Liu Wan she made, and the word really delicious suddenly rose in his heart. General Tao. Jun Changxiao walked over and said, are you convinced of your defeat? Tao Yuan, who was tied up, was silent for a while and said, I'm convinced. In this battle, he was defeated too miserably, and the Tiger Power Army was completely crushed by the Wolf Cavalry. He was absolutely convinced. Jun Chang smiled and said, my Tigu sect is in urgent need of a large number of talents. Are you interested in joining? Tao Yuan raised his head with difficulty and said, Master Jun, although I'm not a big shot, I will never surrender to the enemy. General Tao. Jun Changxiao was not discouraged and said, you misunderstood. What I meant is that you should join my Iron Bone Sect. Is there any difference between this and surrendering to the enemy? Tao Yuan said coldly. There is a difference. Jun Changxiao said, let me ask General Tao first. Do you have a sect? No sect or school. Tao Yuan said. Jun Changxiao said, although you are a general of Zhen'an County, you have no sect or school, so why can't you join my Iron Bone Sect? There is nothing wrong with what he said. However, Tao Yuan said, you are my enemy if you lead your disciples to guard Qingyang City. Joining your sect is equivalent to surrendering to the enemy. No, no, no. Jun Chang smiled and said, I guard Qingyang City because it is my home. If Zhen'an County does not attack, I will definitely not participate in it. Now that you have failed to attack the city, my Tigu sect must also stay out of it. We are not enemies, so it is reasonable to join the sect. Let's talk about it later. Jun Chang smiled and said, joining my Tigu Zhengheng sect is just a disciple. I'm not asking you to lead troops to fight with Zhen'an County. Zi Guangquan's mouth twitched. The mouth cannon of Jun's persuasion to surrender is really coquettish. Tao Yuan was also stunned by what he said. Thinking about it carefully, it seems to be the same. General Tao. The Zhen'an County Wooking said weakly, scholars can be killed, but not humiliated. Bang, bang, bang. Jun Changxiao threw a series of punches at him, torturing him until he fainted. He clapped his hands and said, General Tao, I'll give you some time to think about it. Then he said, thank you, City Lord. Lock up all these captives in the dungeon. Yes. Zi Guangquan immediately ordered Tao Yuan, the king of martial arts, and the thousands of captured Tiger Power Army soldiers, to be locked up in the dungeon. Master Jun. He cupped his hands and said gratefully, if it weren't for your help, my Qingyang City would have fallen long ago. Jun Changxiao said, don't be happy too soon, this is just the vanguard. The Zhen'an County army is still in Heian County and Huai'an County. Zi Guangquan's expression suddenly became solemn. Yes. Zhen'an County only sent 30,000 troops, and there are more than 100,000 troops behind. Chapter 453, First Grade Spiritual Medicine. Although Jun Changxiao's epic mission was completed, the crisis of Qingyang City and even the entire Qingyang County was not resolved, because the main force of the invasion was the White Tiger Army. My Oak's cavalry and Tao Yuan's Tiger Army were just two of the troops. Therefore, Sect Master Jun did not return to the Tigu sect with his disciples, and continued to stay in Qingyang City, to help 3.6 million people resist foreign invasion. After breaking through the two queens of Jianwu, he had more confidence to face the 6th level Zhen'an County. The Tigu sect continued to garrison Qingyang City, which almost moved Zi Guangquan to tears. In the evening, a banquet was held on the city tower. After 3 rounds of wine, he thanked with tears and snot. When he was excited, he almost knelt down to thank the people. Thank you, Lord City. Jun Changxiao dragged him and said, I said that Qingyang City is my home, and I will not allow it to be bullied by outsiders. Come. He raised his glass and said, don't say anything, everything is in the wine. Drink. Zi Guangquan drank a lot of wine that night and got drunk. In the end, he took an empty wine jar and sang and danced on the city wall. Jun Changxiao watched the cute Lord Zi get drunk and took out the holy qualification transformation liquid from the space ring. The epic task not only made him the double king of sword and martial arts, but also gave him a cylinder bottle of holy qualification transformation liquid, which was undoubtedly very cool. Pa. Open it and drink it. Ding. Congratulations to the host. The spiritual root qualification has been upgraded from the best to the holy. Improving qualifications is undoubtedly equivalent to washing the marrow and removing the hair. But under the qualification transformation liquid, it is easy to reach the level of holy spiritual roots, which is really incredible. Strange. Jun Changxiao murmured, spiritual roots have been upgraded, but why do I feel that there is no change? The system said, does the host feel that the strength should be increased by 1 million pounds to be considered a change? Not bad. Go to sleep, it's okay in dreams. Damn. Jun Changxiao cursed, then rubbed his hands and pulled out the system maul. There are too many things to do during the day and no time. Now that I have some free time, I naturally have to spend all the 4892 excess contribution points. No consideration. Go directly to the intermediate mall. Previously, in order to test the 5 points of luck, I only dared to use the primary mall to test. Now that the contribution value is more, I finally have the confidence. Pull down the mall. Ding. Sect contribution value 9792/5000. The new products were presented, and Jun Changxiao happily flipped through them. The first product that came into view was called Sect Equipment Machine. According to the detailed introduction, this item consists of a total of 5 sets: weapon machine, equipment machine, martial arts machine, elixir machine, and treasure machine. The function is that it can be combined with the host's space ring. With just a thought, various things can be equipped, and let the disciples pick them up by themselves. It is a bit like the vending machine in the disciple mall, but more detailed than that. Jun Changxiao held his chin and said, the weapons and equipment or elixirs that have been refined must be handed over to the disciples in person. With this thing, they can pick them up by themselves. Ding. The host consumes 1000 contribution points and obtains 1 sect equipment machine, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. Sect contribution value 8792/5000. Jun Changxiao continued to watch. Soon, he saw a defensive martial art called Spirit Armor. The quality is not too high, only the best middle level, but if you practice it successfully, you can turn spiritual energy into armor and put it on your body to form a strong defensive force. This is a good thing. The eyes of the head of the Jun sect suddenly lit up. The seal shield is also a defensive martial art, but its function is to form a defensive shield in front of you. You cannot make a move during this period, otherwise the defensive shield will fail. To put it bluntly, it means turning yourself into an egg. You can resist attacks, but you can't stretch your hands out to fight. So when the members of the Wolf Riders Hall are fighting the Tiger Power Army, no one will use it, because that would just be a moving eggshell. Lin Kuei is different. He gathers armor in front of him with spiritual energy, so that he can attack, while being fully armed, without being affected at all. Bye. He spent 1000 contribution points to buy Lin Kuei. The system automatically matched the sect's skills, and Sect Master Jun copied 5000 copies in one breath. Because the sect's equipment machine has not been used yet, otherwise it can be automatically equipped to the martial arts machine with just a thought. Jun Changxiao continued to read. Soon, his eye stopped on an item called First Grade Spiritual Medicine. The intermediate mall is all intermediate grade, and it is the first time he has seen a first grade product appear. Click on the details. Item. First grade spiritual medicine. Introduction. It is said that this is a panacea made by Taishang Laojin using the 16 divine fire, one of the 4 great heavenly fires. Note, a failed product. Function. It can cure various difficult and complicated diseases. Disadvantages. Because it is a failed product, it can only cure martial artists below the level of Martial King. Price. 1000 contribution points. Fuck. Jun Changxiao was surprised and said, a failed product refined by the Supreme Lord Laojin. The system said, this is just a rumor. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, it's a pity that it can only be used for martial artists below the level of Martial King. Otherwise I would definitely buy one to help Elder Wenny treat difficult and complicated diseases. So, it has no effect. The system said, the host does not have to buy it. Jun Changxiao thought so too, and then continued to read on, but suddenly remembered something and murmured, it should be able to cure Palace Master Z's eye disease, right? The system said, the realm of the Palace Master of Maihua Palace is the 9th grade martial master, which meets the treatment requirements. It was the first time that Jun Changxiao heard of Zijingsuan's cultivation, and he couldn't help but be surprised and said, she is only in her early 20s, but her strength is so high. If she is not the leader of a faction, I'm afraid she can be ranked in the list of heroes. Reaching the 9th grade martial master at the age of 20 can not only make it to the list, but also enter the top level. Should I buy one for her? Jun Changxiao murmured. He was very conflicted because it was worth 1000 contribution points. If he bought it, there would definitely be a bunch of readers in the chapter reviews who would criticize him for being a saint. Forget it. Let's keep it for now. Jun Changxiao continued to look at the products and saw 2 martial arts books one after another. One was a soft palm method of the best initial quality, suitable for female practice. The other was more special, called Kinxinju. Although it was a mental method, it was only used to stabilize the state of mind, so that it would be more focused on practice, and not be confused by distracting thoughts. The Tegu sect was short of various martial arts, and sect leader Jun was not short of contribution points, so he spent 2000 contribution points to buy it, and then copied 5000 copies of each 9892 points. He spent it in a short time until there were only 5642 points left. There was no way. With contribution points, you can be willful. Jun Changxiao took back the intermediate mall, opened the purchased goods, and directly bought 20 bottles of intermediate qualification transformation liquid. This is used to reward the members of the wolf cavalry who performed well in the previous battle. Zhang Yi also performed very well and captured the general alive. He can be rewarded with a bottle of qualification transformation liquid. Jun Changxiao murmured. He now has 6 bottles. It is still impossible to determine who to give it to, so it can only be distributed based on performance. If there is a punishment mechanism, Li Shangshan, the pig teammate who accidentally shot Zhang Yi, will definitely be unlucky. The next day, Jun Changxiao summoned the disciples in Qingyang City early in the morning and handed them the defensive martial arts Linkei. The members of the Wolf Cavalry Hall who performed well on the battlefield also received the qualification transformation liquid. After taking it, they all upgraded from ordinary to medium grade. As expected, they were all dumbfounded. Zhang Yi, who had stepped from the upper grade spiritual roots to the top grade spiritual roots, was also stunned at this moment. Suzaomo came over, patted him on the shoulder, and said, "Brother Zhang, don't get excited, this is just a very ordinary thing. PS, I feel that I'm not in the right state to write. I need to adjust it, and I will update 5 times today. Please vote." Chapter 454. Something happened. After acquiring martial arts, the disciples of Tegu sect began to practice. They first practiced the Kinxinju. It is true that once this mental method is put into practice, the state of mind is indeed much more stable. Everyone has 7 emotions and 6 desires. Except for those with great perseverance, they will be distracted or disturbed by external objects when practicing or doing things. The function of Kinxinju is to clear all distracting thoughts and stabilize the mind. As long as the state of mind is calm, it will definitely be faster to comprehend the martial arts. In the temporary residence, arranged by City Lord Zi, Jun Changxiao circulated several large and small Zaoshan, and murmured, "Running the Kinxinju can make you embrace the Yuan and guard the One faster. This is a good thing." Moreover, this mental method can not only be used to comprehend the martial arts, but also to comprehend martial arts after running. It is a completely multifunctional auxiliary mental method. The disciples of Tegu sect also realized it, so they focus more on comprehending the Kinxinju. A few days later, on the military camp's martial arts field, several disciples of Tegu sect released their spiritual energy, forming a cloud-like breath, which then gradually covered their bodies and gathered into a looming armor. Martial arts, Linkei. After using it, not only will the body be covered with armor, but also the helmet will be condensed, and the teeth will be armed. This defensive martial arts is easy to learn, but difficult to master. Even if you have mastered it, the strength of the defense will be determined by the spiritual power. Several Tegu school disciples who were tested were only 2nd and 3rd grade martial artists, and they could only form armor that seemed real and illusory, but could not materialize it. Zairozuji came over, released his spiritual power, and the majestic attributes roared out, gathering the armor in the fastest time, and then punched several times in succession, saying, "It is not affected at all. My god. Brother Zairo's condensed armor is so strong." Several disciples surrounded him enviously. Zairozuji, a peak martial artist, has higher spiritual power than his junior brother, and his armor is close to materialization. standing on the martial arts field. He looks like a brave and warlike general. Just at this time, Suzuomo came out and said in surprise, "Brother Zio, your condensed armor is too handsome, right?" He also used Linkei. However, standing next to Ziozuji, he was obviously a little weaker. Li Fei, Shinki and others also came over one after another. They used Linkei with great interest. In the last comparison, no matter in substance or form, they were slightly different from Ziozuji. This may be related to Ziozuji's major in physical strength. Extremely boring. Yi Xingchen, sitting on the city wall, looked at the people below testing martial arts, and a hint of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. He also learned Linkei, but he didn't take it to heart. What he really cared about was the Kinksanju. This kind of mental method that stabilizes the mind is really helpful for martial arts. Even Zhao Han practiced it because it can help him calm down and comprehend the sword. When guarding Qingyang City, the disciples were still immersed in practicing martial arts, which made Ziguancan secretly sigh. No wonder the Tigu school is so strong. Their disciples practice very hard. After the defeat of the Hui army, the enemy army in Heian County and Huaiang County did not make any movement, which gave Jun Changxiao a lot of time. Tao Yuan, who became a prisoner, was a bit tragic. He was locked in a cage, without any food, and was hungry for 3 days. Jun Changxiao would come over to chat every time he finished his practice. The topic was not to persuade him to surrender, but to explain the delicious food on the tip of his tongue. I have never seen such a cheap person talking about delicious food when he was hungry. What's more, Jun Changxiao also called Liu Wanshi over, set up the stove in the dungeon, and explained every step of cooking affectionately and heavily. Even the most ordinary stir-fried cabbage, under his preparation and rendering, exudes the fragrance of time. Tao Yuan could only be silent, and continue to be silent. Even though he was starving, as a soldier, he must not waver in his mind, because of the temptation of delicious food. Sect leader Jun was not in a hurry. As long as he had time, he would continue to explain the delicious food on the tip of his tongue. It was night. The sky was full of stars. Jun Changxiao was lying on the roof of the city tower, looking up at the full moon, and murmured, "I miss home a little bit." These days, he has been explaining food to Tao Yuan, mostly Chinese Shandong cuisine, Sichuan cuisine, etc. So it is inevitable that he will look up at the bright moon and think about his hometown. "I wonder if anyone still remembers me?" Jun Changxiao said bitterly. "I have no relatives and few friends, so who will remember me?" Suddenly, he realized that he had no worries on earth, so why should he be obsessed? Isn't it enough to live peacefully in another world? Besides, he is the leader of a school and has many disciples. Although they are not relatives or friends, they are also teachers and friends. It's not bad to grow up together happily. Whoosh! Xia Longlong jumped over the city wall and landed beside Jun Changxiao, then shrank his head and lay down next to his master. Because of the beast pill, the little guy's appetite problem has been solved, so he rarely appears recently. Jun Changxiao touched its fiery red head and said, "When can you grow up?" Coo. The little dragon screamed and closed his eyes lazily. Jun Changxiao shook his head, turned his head to look at the northernmost city wall, and locked on Lu Qian, who was dressed in white. This woman has been standing there for a while. Master Jun, who always releases spiritual thoughts, has captured it early. What is she thinking? Lu Qian is thinking about the Kinksanju. This kind of mental method that can stabilize the state of mind is of great help to her in comprehending the Taixu and Binksanju. After a few days, Master Jun noticed that the iceberg girl, who had melted a little, was getting colder and colder every day. "It's so cold." Walking in front of the fellow disciples, everyone shuddered involuntarily. "Master." One day, Lu Qian came to see him and said, "The war is over, and I'm going out to practice." After practicing the Kinksanju, her originally slightly turbulent state of mind gradually moved towards a level of calmness, so she was eager to go to Luzhou in the northeast. Okay. Jun Changxiao did not object. The two stood on the tower and the other stood under the tower, more than 10 meters apart, but they did not speak after talking, and the atmosphere was slightly awkward. "Master." At this time, Li Luoqiu, who was in the Tigu sect, transmitted a message. Something happened. What happened? Jun Changxiao said. Li Luoqiu said, the spy has reported that the sect forces of Zhejiang County have brought many masters to Kangshan sect, and it seems that they want to mess up the scene. Mess up the scene. Jun Changxiao frowned slightly. The sect forces of Zhejiang County went to Kangshan sect, which should be related to this war. If it were me, if I wanted to attack a certain county, I would naturally have to make good arrangements for the prominent forces in the county. Elder Jiang, Master Zhu. Jun Changxiao jumped down from the tower and said, you are responsible for protecting Qingyang City. Qian Qian, Xingchen. He added, follow me to Kangshan sect. The little dragon, who was still sleeping, suddenly became energetic and jumped onto his master's shoulder. Abu. The Hurricane Wolf King was summoned, and Jun Changxiao jumped up and rushed to Kangshan sect with Lu Qian Qian and Yi Xingchen. Chapter 455. Now that you are here, don't go back. Everything is as Jun Changxiao guessed. If Zhejiang County wants to attack a certain county, it will definitely send people to arrange for the big and powerful forces in the county. Several major sects and major evil sects in Heian County and Huaiang County have also been arranged, so when the war comes, they all choose to close the mountains and stay, and ignore the requests of the city lords of each city. How to arrange it? It's very simple. Bring people to smash the scene. The two fifth-rate sects in Heian County were all beaten by the masters sent by Zhejiang County. Although not fatal, everyone was injured. Even if they really want to do something for the county, because the main force of the sect is injured, they are powerless. The two counties were arranged clearly. Since Zhejiang County has the ambition to annex Qingyang County, it will naturally arrange Kangshan sect the old way. Send masters to challenge openly. Moreover, there are 3 martial kings and more than 20 martial masters. They stood on the martial arts field of Kangshan sect, proudly puffed out their chests, and had a strong aura of pretense. Master Yu, an old man in his 60s or 70s, laughed coldly. We haven't seen each other for at least 50 years, right? His name is Shooting Feng. He is the great elder of the 4th-rate Lingyuan sect in Zhejiang County and the leader of this mess. In the hall, the master of Kangshan sect, who was wearing a loose Taoist robe, frowned and said, back then, you and I were at the same level, but I didn't expect that you have already entered the martial king level now. Ha ha ha. Shooting Feng laughed loudly and said, I'm in a 6th class county and a 4th-rate sect. Isn't it normal for me to break through to the martial king level? He and the master of Kangshan sect are old acquaintances. They once fought in the largest scale sect competition held in southwest Yangzhou. At that time, both of them were martial sects and their strengths were comparable, but in the end, they lost to Master Yu. Today, Shooting Feng has not only broken through to the martial king level, but also reached the 4th level. Not only in Zhejiang County, but even in the entire southwest Yangzhou, he is also a top-ranked strongman. Elder Shu, another martial king next to him, grinned and said, the aura of the head of the Kangshan sect is only that of a peak martial master. It was a bit unfair for you to lose to him back then. His name is Zhuang Yang, an elder of the Lingyuan sect. Although his name is ordinary, he is a 3rd-grade martial king. Another martial king is from the 4th-rate Duanshu Pavilion in Zhejiang County, and his cultivation is only the strength of a 1st-grade martial king. More than 20 martial masters, including masters of the Lingyuan sect and Duanshu Pavilion, are at the 8th or 9th grade. They stood on the martial arts field, releasing their aura unscrupulously, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Ma Yunteng, Wang Donglin and other elders standing behind Master Yu all frowned. These people are not here with good intentions. Shooting Feng didn't hesitate and said directly, we came to Kangshan sect this time, to ask for advice on martial arts. To ask for advice on martial arts? Sect Master Yu sneered and said, the 200,000 troops of Zhejiang County are attacking Heian County and Huaiang County. I'm afraid you came here on orders this time. Kangshan sect also heard about what was happening outside. They had discussed many times whether to help the enemy army when it invaded Qingyang County or to close the gate of the mountain. In the end, before they could reach an agreement, Zhejiang County sent people to make arrangements. I guess so. Shooting Feng didn't hide it and said, what our county magistrate meant is that when the army approaches, Kangshan sect will close the gate of the mountain and pretend that they know nothing and have seen nothing. Sect Master Yu sneered and said, has your Lingyuan sect already submitted to the county magistrate of Zhen'an County? There is no direct relationship between power and county. For example, in Qingyang County, although the county magistrate can control 8 cities, he has no management power over the sects or even large sects like Kangshan sect. County Magistrate Zuo has great ambitions, and our Lingyuan sect is naturally willing to assist him and help him achieve unprecedented achievements. Shooting Feng said. Sect leader Yu said calmly, the governor of Zhen'an County ignored the treaty and repeatedly declared war on the surrounding small counties, causing countless lives to be broken up. You are aiding and abetting the tyrant. Ha ha ha. Shooting Feng laughed, the so-called treaty is useless. The counties in southwest Yangzhou all have ulterior motives. The purpose of Governor Zuo's expedition is to establish a stronger system, so that the people in the small counties can live a stable life. Bullshit. Ma Yunteng couldn't help but said angrily, the cities of Haiyang City and Huaiyang City were conquered by you and were bloodbathed. Is this the so-called stable life? Shooting Feng said calmly, if they choose to resist, they must pay a price. My Zhen'an County only needs people who are loyal to Zhen'an County. Sect leader Yu said coldly, don't say anything, if you don't agree. Please go back. Shooting Feng smiled coldly and said, Sect leader Yu, we have come here from thousands of miles away to exchange martial arts. Are you going to refuse from the Kangshan sect? Ma Yunteng said, the 3 martial kings came here not to exchange martial arts, but to bully the weak, right? Shooting Feng smiled and said, you can think so. At the beginning, they were quite polite, but when it came to this, it was almost as if they said directly, we are here to ruin the show today. Sect Master Yu and the elders were furious. The 2 fourth-rate sects in Zhen'an County were going too far. Ma Yunteng. At this moment, a middle-aged man came out and pointed at him and said, do you dare to come down and fight with Luo? This was an outer sect elder of Lingyuan sect, whose cultivation had reached the peak of Wuzang. He couldn't stand the word fart that Ma Yunteng had just said, so he decided to challenge him first. After Jun Changxiao's instruction, although Elder Ma broke through to Wuzang, he had just entered the 3rd rank in the past year and was definitely not as good as a peak Wuzang. I'll fight you. Wang Donglin jumped and landed on the martial arts field. His strength was the peak of Wuzang, so he could compete with the outer sect elders of Lingyuan sect. The master surnamed Luo strode forward and said proudly, please. Swish, swish, swish. When the 2 sect masters of Zhen'an County were smashing the scene of Kangshan sect, Jun Changxiao was riding the Hurricane Wolf King, bringing Lu Kaiyan Qian and Yi Xingchen to come quickly. 2 hours later, the 3 of them arrived at Kangshan Mountain, but they did not see the gatekeeper disciples. Let's go. Jun Changxiao rode the Hurricane Wolf King directly, galloped up the mountain road, and jumped up, flew over the gate of Kangshan sect, and landed in the outer courtyard. Boom. Just at this moment, a loud noise was heard, and Ma Yunteng was blown away. Jun Changxiao, who had just stabilized his body, caught it in advance with his spiritual thoughts, and immediately used the cloud step to fly up and catch the flying Elder Ma. The strong men of Lingyuan sect and Duanshu Pavilion looked at him in surprise. Who is this person? He is riding a Hurricane Wolf King. Trample. Jun Changxiao fell to the ground, and there was a sunken palm print on the chest of Ma Yunteng, who was holding him. His face was extremely pale, and it was obvious that he was seriously injured. Outside the martial arts arena, Wang Donglin, who was the first to fight, was being supported by his disciples at this moment. It can be seen that he had already lost the battle with the warrior named Luo. Jun. Sect Master. As soon as Ma Yunteng opened his mouth, the blood in his body could not be suppressed, and he spurted out blood and then fainted. This kind old man, who was recruited by the 100 sects, had prevented others from disturbing his enlightenment and had helped the Iron Bone Sect many times. They had a very good relationship. Now that he was beaten unconscious, how could Jun Changxiao accept it? He gently put Ma Yunteng on the ground, then raised his head, swept the masters of the 2 sects of Zhen'an County present, and said with murderous intent, since you are here, don't go back. Chapter 456, Killing King Wu. Hu. A heavy aura burst out from Jun Changxiao's body, instantly filling the entire outer courtyard of Kangshan Sect. Ma Yunteng was beaten unconscious, and these so-called masters of the two sects of Zhejiang County must be held fully responsible for this. This is, Wang Donglin said with surprise, the aura of the martial king. Although sect leader Yu had never met Jun Changxiao, he knew his identity from what Ma Yunteng said before he fainted, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Wasn't this young and promising sect leader of the Tegu sect only a martial sect? How come he is now at the martial king realm? Moreover, judging from the heavy aura he exuded, he is probably not at the first grade level. The last time Jun Changxiao came to visit, the elders of the Kangshan sect who had communicated with him were also dazed at this moment. They remembered very clearly that the martial arts aura exuded by sect leader Jun at that time was only a second or third grade martial sect. How could he become a martial king after such a short time? They couldn't figure out why, and in the end they could only blame it on the fact that the sect leader of the Tegu sect must have deliberately suppressed his realm when he visited the sect. Jun Changxiao burst out his martial arts cultivation, and the Kangshan sect was deeply shocked. Shooting Feng said proudly, "Boy, who are you? It's not important anymore." Jun Changxiao raised a sneer at the corner of his mouth and said, "The important thing is that you are going to be unlucky soon." Swish. He performed the Zangan step and instantly rushed to the martial arts arena, rushing towards the 8th grade martial arts master who had just attacked Ma Yunteng. "Not good," the man said in surprise. Boom. Jun Changxiao had already appeared in front of him and punched him in the abdomen cleanly, causing the clothes on his back to shatter and the skin to show fist marks. He hit the front and there were fist marks on his back. It can be seen how terrifying the power of this punch is. The 8th grade martial arts master who severely defeated Ma Yunteng suddenly stood in place, with the muscles on his face frozen in fear. His thoughts and brain had lost contact, and finally collapsed on the ground like mud, becoming a corpse with residual warmth. Domineering and ruthless. Elder He, the strong man of Lingyuan sect, shouted angrily. "Boy," Shooting Feng said with a cold look, "killing my people from Lingyuan sect, what are you doing?" Boom. Boom. Before he finished speaking, Jun Changxiao appeared in front of the two top martial masters of Lingyuan sect, and his big hand suddenly stretched out and directly clasped the other's neck, and said coldly, "Look carefully, how I killed you today." Crack. Crack. His 10 fingers suddenly contracted like a pair of pliers, and the two top martial masters who were bound died, before they could struggle. Die. The martial king of Duanshu Pavilion strode over, and his right fist condensed almost materialized spiritual energy, carrying a million forces to blast over. Jun Changxiao suddenly turned around, stretched out his right fist, and directly hit the other's fist. The violent force was like a tidal wave pressing down. Bang, crack, bang, 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 bang. The Wu Wang of the Broken Water Pavilion retreated with a ferocious face. When he stabilized his body, his right arm collapsed, and his hand bones were directly broken. Master Yu and the elders of the Kangshan sect almost popped their eyes out. They understood that Wu Wang killed Wu Zhang, as if he was crushing an ant. However, Master Jun broke a Wu Wang's arm with one punch. This was too terrifying. Shooting Feng's face became solemn. He didn't take Jun Changxiao seriously at first, but he didn't expect his strength to be so tyrannical. Grand Elder Zhuang Yan transmitted his voice. "This boy is very powerful." Swish. At this moment, Jun Changxiao stepped on the Zangan step and appeared in front of the injured Wu Wang. Like a king on high, he said, "Today I will take a Wu Wang to sacrifice to the heaven. Don't even think about it, little thief." Zhuang Yang strode over. The spiritual power type martial arts gathered in his hands were immediately displayed and instantly formed a hot and dazzling beam of light. The king of martial arts is the king of martial arts. Although he seems to be making light of his moves, the aura and power of his martial arts are extremely powerful. If it were the head of the Kangshan sect and many elders, it would be difficult for them to compete with a strong man of this level. Don't overestimate your own abilities. Jun Changxiao raised his hand, and the rich spiritual energy gathered instantly, forming a red light at the fastest speed. This is the 7 mysterious light break. Headmaster Jun has been practicing for a long time, but this is the first time he has performed it in front of people. Whoosh. The red light that gathered instantly burst out, dragging out a long stream of light. Boom. The energy beam flying from the other side was directly broken by Wu King, and the red light beam did not dissipate, carrying a huge force and rushing away. Not good. Zhuang Yang's face changed drastically. But, in the fastest time, the spiritual energy wall was instantly arranged in front of him, forming an absolute defense. Boom. However, when the red streamer hit it, it was broken without a single blow, and the fist-sized beam hit Zhuang Yang's chest with great accuracy. Thump, thump, thump. The huge force brought a huge impact, and the Lingyuan sect's third-grade martial king staggered back, until he retreated more than 20 steps, before he stabilized his body. Wow. A mouthful of blood spurted out. If it weren't for the previously gathered energy beams and the spiritual energy wall, which offset a lot of the power of the 7 mysterious lights, he would probably have been injured, and fell to the ground at this moment. Rubbish. Jun Changxiao sneered, stepped on the Zhangyan step, and caught up with the Duanshu Pavilion Martial King who had dodged, while he and Zhuang Yang were fighting. But, the cold sword appeared in his hand out of thin air, and he said in a cold voice, "Don't come to Qingyang County in your next life." The face of the King of Wu changed drastically, and he exploded all the spiritual energy in his spiritual core, gathering the strongest spiritual energy wall in his life. Swoosh, the cold light flashed, as bright as a flower. The spiritual energy wall condensed by the King of Wu of Duanshu Pavilion was cut by a sword mark. His head was separated from his neck, and fell to the ground, showing a face of fear and despair. Plop. The headless body fell, and the strongest spiritual energy wall gathered in his life also dissipated into the air with the death of its owner. On this day, the King of Wu of Duanshu Pavilion fell in Kangshan Sect. The murderer was Jun Changxiao. Hiss. The head of Kangshan Sect and others saw Jun Changxiao kill the King of Wu of Duanshu Pavilion with a sword, and they all gasped. This powerful strength, this domineering method, is really like a killing god coming. Hoo-hoo. Shooting Feng rushed over with heavy spiritual energy, and started with a powerful and heavy punch. At the same time, Zhuang Yang also used boxing skills to hit him. This is the Lingyuan explosion fist of the Lingyuan sect. Although it is not a spiritual power martial art, as long as it hits the target at close range, it will cause explosive damage. Moreover, this is a combined attack technique. If two people perform it at the same time, it will cause resonance, and the power will only be stronger than a single performance. Boom. Boom. It happened in a flash. Shooting Feng and Zhuang Yang's Lingyuan explosion fist had already hit Jun Changxiao's back, and a strong air wave whistled out, instantly bringing gusts of wind. The martial sects standing around, and even the disciples of the Tegu sect, were immediately stirred back by the two forces, and their eyes were even more horrified. This level, this power, what the hell? PS. 3 more, please vote. Chapter 457. He is the double king of sword and martial arts. A 4th grade martial king and a 3rd grade martial king used a combined attack technique. The power generated in an instant was so terrifying that the stone slabs paved in the outer courtyard were shattered. At the same time, the residual power generated by the spiritual energy fluctuations formed ripples that spread in all directions, shocking the surrounding warriors back 7 or 8 steps. They stabilized their bodies, but the blood in their bodies was boiling violently. My god. This residual power is too terrible. Master Yu and the elders of the Kangshan sect all looked worried that Jun Changxiao would be seriously injured. The masters of the two sects of Zhenyang County sneered. With such a strong force, and 2 3rd and 4th grade martial kings attacking together, that abominable guy must be dead. Whoosh. The strong wind continued to whistle, sweeping away the surrounding dust, and the battle area gradually appeared. Only Shooting Feng and Zhuang Yang maintained their bombardment posture, and a stream of powerful spiritual energy spread. However, what made everyone unbelievable was that Jun Changxiao was still standing there, but his original white clothes were replaced by dark armor. The two martial kings of Lingyuan sect did hit the target, but they did not hit the body, but the armor. How? How is it possible? Zhuang's eyes were filled with shock. He and the elder attacked together, and the strength was definitely 4 million pounds. Even the peak high-level martial kings could not resist it. How could he stand safely? Shooting Feng also looked ugly. However, he reacted faster than Zhuang Yang and instantly judged that the other party's ability to stand there must be related to the armor he was wearing. Withstanding such a strong force, he was still calm. Could it be that this is a high quality defensive equipment? Wrong. This is not equipment. This is the armor condensed by Jun Changxiao with spiritual armor. Because of its extremely strong spiritual energy, it is not only almost the same as the real thing, but also can be transformed into black at will. Elder Ma was seriously injured, which made him very angry, so the armor turned black, representing death and killing. Seeing Jun Changxiao standing safe and sound, Master Yu and the elders of Strongest Sect were not only shocked, but also secretly relieved. It seems Master Jun is stronger than he thought. Whoosh. At this moment, Jun Changxiao turned around suddenly, and a middle great cold sword in his hand cut through the void, forming an unparalleled sword energy. Retreat. Shooting Feng and Zhuang Yang retreated at the same time with mysterious body skills. Although they had difficulty avoiding the cold and unparalleled sword energy, they were shocked and broke out in cold sweat on their backs. This person's weapon can easily kill the Wu Wang of Duanshu Pavilion, and it is definitely not an ordinary product. Well equipped and powerful, who is he? Swish. Jun Changxiao stepped forward, his eyes locked on Zhuang Yang, and a cold and fierce sword force instantly filled his body. How strong. The entire outer courtyard of Strongest Sect was suddenly filled with a sharp breath, giving people a terrible sense of killing. Jun Changxiao, who rushed towards Zhuang Yang, seemed to be instantly transformed into a sharp sword under the permeation of sword energy. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Under the cover of the extremely cold sword energy, the swords held by many martial artists were all trembling violently, as if they were worshipping the king. Seeing this strange scene, Master Yu's eyes gradually widened, and he couldn't help but exclaimed, "Sword! Sword King!" Shooting Feng said in horror, He is the sword and martial arts double king. Sword and martial arts double king? Everyone present opened their mouths, and looked at Jun Changxiao, as if they were looking at a monster. A strong man of the level of sword and martial arts double king has not appeared in Xinjiang continent for 5,000 years. No, he was just born in Qingyang County a few days ago. Wait. The masters of the two sects in Zhejiang County suddenly realized that the Strongest Sect where they are now is located in Qingyang County. This seemingly young boy first burst out with the momentum of the martial king, and now burst out with the momentum of the sword king. Could it be that he was promoted to the sword and martial arts double king a few days ago? Incredible, incredible. The injured Wang Donglin was dumbfounded. Not long ago, a strange phenomenon occurred in the sky, and the sword and martial arts kings descended. He and Ma Yunteng had said that it might be Master Jun. In fact, at that time, he and Eldama had only a hope that this powerful existence would be Jun Changxiao, because only he could bear the word of Ildoa. Now when he burst out the power of the Sword King, Wang Donglin really realized that it was not a hope. It was true that Master Jun was not worthy of being an Avildoa, but was originally an Avildoa. The burst of the martial arts king's cultivation had already shocked everyone. Jun Changxiao released the Sword King's cultivation again, absolutely exciting the whole audience, and they were all stunned. Shooting Feng and Zhuang Yang finally understood why this young man who seemed to be only at the first level had such a terrifying fighting power. It turned out to be a sword and martial arts king. Swish. When the two were shocked, Jun Changxiao stepped on the ground with one foot, and the whole person flew into the air and flew dozens of feet straight. It felt like shoulder to shoulder with the sun. Zhuang Yang was so frightened that he retreated with a pale face. However, after he retreated a few steps, he felt the sword force around him pressing down like a wave, but the speed of the pressure slowed down, and his legs became heavy. Zhuang Yang was shocked. In his understanding, only the martial emperor Qi domain can use the momentum to restrain others. Breaking through the martial king can condense the spiritual energy to form a gas wall, and can also use the spiritual thoughts to spy on everything around. Breaking through the martial emperor can not only fly in the air, but also spread the spiritual energy to form an aura to restrain the target, which is called the Qi domain. Jun Changxiao soared into the air, manipulating the diffused sword intent to form an oppressive force. Although it is very similar to the martial emperor Qi domain, it is actually the second style of Lingji and Shenju, the momentum formula. He had already understood this move before he broke through, but he was not proficient in using it. After entering the sword and martial double queen, he suddenly had a deeper understanding. First, the 7 mysterious clouds were broken, then the spiritual armor was transformed into armor, and now the second style of Lingjian Shenju was used. Master Jun also used many moves today. To be honest, although it was very intense, when he fought with others at the level of Wu Zhang, he still lacked something. Now that he has entered the realm of the sword and martial arts king, any move he performs easily will give him the feeling of a landslide. He will then understand that what was lacking before is shock. It is not enough to just be shocking, it must also be lethal. Swish. Jun Changxiao, who soared into the air, restrained Zhuang Yang with his sword. His eyes flashed coldly, and he said, "I will kill another king today." Zhuang Yang, whose movements were restrained, had a horrified look on his face, and a strong sense of crisis suddenly rose in his heart. Am I going to die? No. 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 Zhuang Yang's eyes were bloodshot, and the spiritual energy in his body surged wildly, forming an almost substantial air wall in front of him. But, at the same time, outside the air wall, another arc-shaped transparent barrier appeared. 2 layers of defense were deployed. Swish, 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 swish. At this moment, Jun Changxiao, who was in midair, swung the cold sword in his hand, and then sword energy fell from the sky, forming a sword rain. One word quick formula. One breath. 500 swords. Chapter 458. Can't escape. Jun Changxiao, who was in midair, shook out 500 swords in one breath, and the sword energy formed in the sky was so handsome that it exploded. Whoosh. The dense sword energy in midair was like a cold and fierce sword rain, bombarding the barrier condensed by Zhuang Yang. Domineering and powerful. Bang, 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 bang. Just a few dozen sword energies, the barrier condensed in front of the air wall, similar to the formation, was directly broken. The top grade treasure in Zhuang Yang's arms collapsed on the spot, and the blood in his body rolled violently. He suppressed it, and tried his best to bless the last spiritual energy wall, hoping to. Boom. 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 The subsequent sword rain ruthlessly bombarded, hitting the spiritual energy wall again and again, and cracks appeared in a short time until it completely collapsed. Puff. Zhuang Yang spurted out a mouthful of blood. The blessed treasures and spiritual energy walls were all broken, which dealt a heavy blow to him, and he was already seriously injured. If he could resist, it wouldn't matter, but when the second line of defense was broken, more sword energy burst out with cold and fierce power. No. Zhuang Yang roared in despair. Puff. Puff. More than 200 sword energies hit Zhuang Yang directly, and instantly cut him. His whole body suddenly showed deep sword marks, and blood spurted out. Many warriors twitched at the corners of their mouths. This kind of attack is tantamount to being cut into pieces. After a while, the sword energy disappeared into nothingness, and Zhuang Yang still stood in the same place, with sword marks all over his body, which could be described as a bloody mess. The real fatal injury was on his neck, with 4 shallow sword marks. He looked ferocious and his eyes were scattered. Elder Zhuang, Shooting Feng, who had struggled to break out of the range of the sword energy, roared angrily, but just after shouting, Zhuang Yang, who had his back to him, leaned back and fell straight on the broken ground. Jun Changxiao killed another king. This martial king is still at the 3rd level. The whole Kangshan sect was shocked, and the masters of the 2 sects in Zhejiang County were terrified. 2 of the strongest men in Yangzhou, southwest China, were killed today. This is extremely terrifying and unbelievable. However, after getting rid of Zhuang Yang, Jun Changxiao looked at Shooting Feng again with his sharp eyes and said coldly, "Next, it's your turn." He still wanted to kill. Jun Changxiao wanted to tell Zhejiang County and Xinjiang Continent that whoever hurts my friend, I will kill him. Lu Qian frowned and thought to herself, the head of the sect is killing people. Isn't he afraid of offending 2 4th-rate sects? Thinking of the faction's feud with 2 3rd-rate evil sects, he realized that, if he was afraid of this and that, he would not be himself. Jun Changxiao was not afraid, but Shooting Feng was afraid. At this moment, he was full of fear, and he also had the intention to retreat. This kind of sword martial arts double king level strongman is definitely not something he can contend with, not to mention that he can form a binding force similar to an aura just now. But if he retreated like this, where would his face and the face of Lingjian sect be? Swish. Shooting Feng used his body skills and rushed out like an arrow. face is shit. It's good enough to save his life now. The king of Wu, who had no intention of fighting and was determined to escape, was really fast. In the blink of an eye, Shooting Feng had already jumped out of Kangshan Sect, and in a few jumps, he came to the foot of the mountain and then disappeared into the forest. Jun Changxiao did not chase him, but locked his eyes on the masters of the two sects of Zhejiang County who were full of shock, and said coldly, "Remember, if you don't have the strength, don't come to challenge. Remember, remember." Everyone hurriedly said. Whoosh, whoosh, the sword light flashed. Clang. Jun Changxiao sheathed the sword. The masters of the two sects of Zhejiang County standing in the outer courtyard of Kangshan Sect fell straight to the ground, with fine sword marks on their necks. The 3 martial kings and 20 martial sects who were responsible for arranging the Kangshan Sect, except for Shooting Feng who escaped, all the others died. Otherwise, Jun Changxiao finished the last part and said, "You will all die here." The Kangshan Sect was silent. In such a short time, he killed 2 martial kings and so many martial sects. It was too terrible, too terrifying. Jun Sect Master Yu withdrew his gaze from the corpse and just opened his mouth to speak, but he saw that Jun Changxiao had disappeared and the Hurricane Wolf King had disappeared with him. Swish, swish, swish. In the dense forest, Shooting Feng used his body skills to the extreme and headed towards Zhejiang County. He was ordered to come to arrange the Kangshan Sect this time, but he met a killing god. This was something he could never dream of. Damn it. Thinking of the murder of Elder Zhuang, Shooting Feng roared angrily, "For killing my Lingyuan Sect's people, I will make Kangshan Sect and even the entire Qingyang County bury you with me." From beginning to end, he didn't know who the young man was. Since he came to help Kangshan Sect, he must be from Qingyang County. Therefore, this account should not only be recorded on Kangshan Sect, but also on Qingyang County. Revenge when there is revenge and grievance when there is grievance. Involving innocent people, the mentality of the Lingyuan Sect's great elder is probably no different from that of the evil sect. In a world where martial arts are respected, there is no so-called distinction between good and evil. Some forces just want to play with their personalities and establish a decent image for themselves. In fact, the dirty things done behind the scenes are even worse than those of the evil sect. Swish, swish, swish. Shooting Feng galloped until he was 500 or 600 miles away from Kangshan, before he gradually relaxed. Awoo! Suddenly, a wolf howled behind him. Shooting Feng's spiritual thoughts spread backwards, and he caught that more than 10 miles away, the young man was riding the Hurricane Wolf King and catching up at a very fast speed. His face changed drastically, and then he fled forward without stopping. It's a pity that the realm of the Lingyuan Sect's great elder is higher than that of the Hurricane Wolf King, but his speed is not good, and the distance between the two is gradually closing. Swish. When there were only a few hundred meters left, Jun Changxiao put his hands together, placed them at his waist, and began to use Kamehameha. 7 mysterious clouds break. Whoosh. While galloping, the special attributes hidden between heaven and earth gathered together, and finally formed a dazzling red light in the palm. Sect leader Jun did not use it directly, but continued to accumulate power until it condensed to a satisfactory degree, then pushed forward with both hands and said, 7 mysterious clouds break. Whoosh, the red beam of light with great momentum shot out, dragging the streamer with it. The strong inertia generated shocked the Hurricane Wolf King who was rushing forward, and made him stop suddenly, and retreated 3 to 5 meters in succession. Not good. Seeing this, Shooting Feng's face changed drastically. The beam of light that burst out from behind was not only powerful, but also very fast, and he could not avoid it at all. But, in an instant, a spiritual energy wall was formed in front of him, and a defensive treasure similar to a small tower was thrown out, instantly forming a 3-layer inner and 3-layer outer defense barrier on the road. This small tower, called the Yuji Tower, has reached the initial level of the upper grade. It is Shooting Feng's personal defense treasure, which is much higher than the treasure that Zhuang Yang just activated. Most of the Martial King level strongmen have treasures to protect themselves. But our Jun sect leader does not have it, because he has only bought martial arts and equipment in the mall. However, it will be available soon. Because the 7 mysterious rays of light rushed over with a whistle, it instantly broke the multiple layers of barriers, causing the Yuji Tower suspended in the air to tremble violently. and then fell to the ground uncontrollably. Jun Changxiao didn't pick it up, and his hands were still blessing the red beam, attacking the fleeing Shooting Feng's back. Boom. The beam collided fiercely with the spiritual energy wall. The powerful impact instantly broke the air wall, and the Lingyuan sect's great elder, who lost his defense, was hit on the back, and immediately crashed into the mountain wall like a kite with a broken string. Wow. A mouthful of blood spurted out, and the meridians in his body were severely damaged. Jun Changxiao, riding on the Hurricane Wolf King, landed lightly in front of him, playing with the dark-colored Yuji tower in his hand, and said lightly, I said, since you are here, don't go back. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459, Emperor Wu arrives. The treasure and the broken key wall caused Shooting Feng to suffer heavy damage, and he had no ability to escape at this moment. He had arranged the forces of Heian County into Huayan County properly, but he didn't expect that he would be overturned in Qinghai County, which he least cared about. However, when he heard Jun Changxiao call himself this seat, Shooting Feng couldn't help but secretly guess, could this boy be the leader of a sect? Especially when he thought of Ma Yunteng, who was called Jun sect leader, before he fell into a coma. He suddenly realized and said, you are the sect leader of the Tegu sect, Jun Changxiao? Yes. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. He didn't intend to hide his identity from the beginning, and he didn't say it, because he was angry, and wanted to avenge Eldamar. Shooting Feng's eyes were filled with disbelief. He had heard of the Tegu sect, and he knew that, although the sect leader was a little bit unusual, his cultivation was only at the level of Wuzang. Jun. Sect leader Jun. Shooting Feng said with difficulty, we are all people in the martial arts world, why should we kill them all? He was scared. There is no longer the arrogance that he had when he came to Kangshan sect. This is the cruel reality. If you are weak, others will bully you. If you are strong, others will be afraid of you. Swish. Jun Changxiao squatted down, grabbed his collar, and said lightly, you beat Eldamar like that, and you still have the nerve to say that you are a man of the world? If Ma Yunteng was only injured, not seriously injured, he would definitely not go to extremes and kill people. Shooting Feng said with a bitter face, when discussing the Dao, it is inevitable that there will be accidental injuries. Pa. As soon as he finished speaking, sect leader Jun slapped him and said, this is an accidental injury for me. A palm print suddenly appeared on Shooting Feng's right face, accompanied by a burning pain, but he endured it and said, forget it. If slapping can make the other party withdraw his killing intention, he would rather be hit a few more times. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, as the king of martial arts, why don't you have a little bit of backbone? Shooting Feng was silent. Jun Changxiao said, Kangshan sect and Tegu sect are allies. If you bully them, you are bullying Jun Changxiao, so. The cold sword was unsheathed. Shooting Feng's face suddenly changed, or perhaps he realized that he was doomed to die, and said angrily, Jun Changxiao, if you kill me, it means you will offend the entire Zhenyan County. When the time comes, the county governor will send 1,000,000 troops to attack the border, and it will not only be you who will die, but everyone will be buried with you. Jun Changxiao pretended to be entangled and said, if you let you go, my Qinghai County will be buried with you. If you kill you, my Qinghai County will also be buried with you. This makes it very difficult for me to choose. Shooting Feng was dumbfounded. Just now, he said that, if someone killed my Lingyuan sect, Kangshan sect and even the entire Qinghai County would be buried with him. Jun sect master. Shooting Feng hurriedly said, I was just saying it in anger. You don't take it as. Puff, the sword flashed, extremely sharp. Shooting Feng was still talking, his head and neck had separated, and then fell on the grass, his eyes gradually blurred. Sorry. Jun Changxiao retracted his sword and said, I took it seriously. Let him go, and he will be buried with you. Kill him, and he will be buried with you. In this case, let's kill him. Plop, the headless body fell, and blood flowed. Ding. Hidden task completed, kill without mercy, to obtain 1000 contribution points. Ding. Contribution value of the sect. 5642/5000. Ding. The contribution value of the sect overflowed. After killing all the masters of the two sects who came to attack Kangshan sect, Jun Changxiao completed another hidden task. This was more unexpected, and I didn't expect it. The old rules. Jun Changxiao searched Shooting Feng's body and found two space rings and used exquisite fire to burn them to ashes. The system said, if the host hadn't heard what he said, would he have killed him? Jun Changxiao said, it's not important anymore. The system said, the host's spiritual power is twice as strong as that of an ordinary martial king. He would never have thought until his death that what he said would be heard by the host 100 miles away. Jun Changxiao said, my spiritual power is stronger than others because I have two crystal cores? Yes. The system said. Jun Chang smiled and said, it seems that even without the assistance of you and them all, I can still have the capital to stand on my own. The system said, the host is not only a sword and martial king, but also has two spiritual cores. Without my help, he can indeed stand on the Xingyu continent. How about this? It said, why not temporarily stop the system and venture into the other world by yourself? However, the bound soul bomb will not be suspended just because I stop moving. Go, go, go. Jun Changxiao would not suspend the system. After all, although he had the strength to stand on the other world, his sect was still very weak. He had to meet the requirements of the strongest sect, unbind the bomb, and then suspend this guy who was attacking him all day. The system said, host, this is called killing the donkey after it has done its work. Yes, yes. Jun Changxiao agreed very much and said, you are just a donkey. On the way back to Kangshan sect, Sect Master Jun began to count Shooting Feng's two space rings and was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth for a long time. 10,000 spirit stones, countless crystal cores, ores, and medicinal materials. Even the silver bills are tens of millions. Oh my god. Jun Changxiao was surprised and said, this guy's really rich. How can the great elder of a fourth-rate sect not be rich? The system poured cold water and said, the host is not concerned about the harvest now, but how to face a fourth-rate sect and a sixth-rate Zenayan county. That makes sense. Jun Changxiao frowned. Although the person was killed, he felt refreshed. But the aftermath must be considered seriously, otherwise it would be mindless pretense. The system said, these two sects will never give up after learning that their own martial kings were killed. Zenayan County will definitely attack in large numbers after learning that the host has captured Taoyuan. It's a bit troublesome. Jun Changxiao rubbed his temples, feeling that things were very tricky. If he offended a third-rate evil sect, there was a large formation to protect the sect, so at most he could retreat to fight them. If he offended a sixth-rate county, he could hide himself, and the people in the county would be affected. That's right. His eyes lit up, and he said, I still have a battle exemption card. If I write Zenayan County on it, won't I be exempted from fighting for 3 months? The system said, let's not talk about whether this product has any effect on a county. Let's talk about what the host should do after 3 months. Bring a few thousand disciples to fight against 2 sects and 1,000,000 troops? Impossible. Jun Changxiao still has self-knowledge. Not to mention asking the Wolf Riders Hall to fight against 1,000,000 troops. Even if it fights against an army of 200,000 or 300,000, it will die in an ugly way. If there is really no other way, I can only use the exemption card. After all, if I can delay for 3 months, it will be 3 months. Just after Sect Master Jun made up his mind, the spiritual thoughts that spread out caught a stream of light from 100 miles away, which was coming rapidly. To be precise, it was flying rapidly. Martial King. Jun Changxiao was shocked. Then, he instantly realized that the stream of light was flying towards him. The system said nervously, the breath of the person coming is very similar to the person you just killed. They must be from the same sect. Damn. Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, I just killed someone, and he comes to seek revenge. This speed is too fast. As he spoke, he was already stepping on the cloud-long step and fled to the depths of the forest. Facing a high-level martial king, he still had the confidence to fight, but facing a martial king, he must run as fast as possible. However, Not long after they started walking, a cold shout came from the stream of light flying behind them. To the one who killed my Iron Bone Sect, today is your death anniversary. Whoosh, the voice contained a strong breath, and the whole space seemed to tremble. Jun Changxiao, who was running wildly, was suddenly restrained by an invisible force, and his body gradually became sluggish. This is the Wuhan key domain. Nima. Jun Changxiao was sweating profusely, and he howled in his heart, I really want to live another 500 years. Chapter 460 Bad Luck. Jun Changxiao knew that, after killing 3 martial kings from 2 sects in Zhejiang County, the other party would definitely investigate, and sooner or later they would find out about him. But he never expected that the other party would send people to chase him after shooting Feng had just been killed, and they were still powerful martial emperors who could fly. They think too highly of me. In fact, sect leader Jun didn't know that after he killed Zhuangyang, Lingyuan sect, which was thousands of miles away, had noticed it. When shooting Feng was escaping, he also passed on his experience in a special way, which made the other party dispatch the strongest force. The system said, the host killed 3 martial kings. If you don't send some tough guys, isn't it like the Calabash brothers saving grandpa, one comes and one goes? If he wasn't in danger, sect leader Jun would definitely discuss the plot of the Calabash brothers with it, and ask him whether he likes the eldest or the second baby. Can you stop talking nonsense and quickly find a way to get out of danger? The host has been completely bound by the martial emperor key domain. At this moment, I can only describe it as it's hard to fly with a hair inserted. That swings. Goddamn hair. Don't panic. Don't panic. I still have the difficult sword. The system poured cold water and said, with the host's current strength, the difficult sword can't deal with a martial emperor who can form an aura. Just when Jun Changxiao collapsed, a vast pressure spread from behind him, instantly covering his body, making him feel like he was carrying a mountain on his back. Although this force is stronger than the gravity of the training tower, he can still adapt to it, but he is bound by the aura, so he can't speed up at all, and he is almost frozen in place. It's over. It's over. I'm going to sing a cold song today. Just when he was desperate, Jun Changxiao suddenly thought of the escape talisman, which was also the last talisman given by the gift package. In the past, sect leader Jun often thought that as the leader of the Iron Bone Sect, he could be beaten, abused, and humiliated, but he must never do the cowardly thing of running away. A man should be iron-boned. A man should be upright. Swish. The spirit merged into the ring and held the escape talisman in his hand. Whoosh, just at this moment, the martial emperor had already flown over from dozens of miles away, at a speed so fast that it was breathtaking. Boy, die. He shouted angrily, raising one hand suddenly. Above Jun Changxiao, the invisible attributes of heaven and earth suddenly appeared, as if being pulled by some kind of force, instantly coming together and converging into a huge palm print. Whoosh, the wind was howling with amazing power. After breaking through the sword and martial arts queens, sect leader Jun felt that he was very awesome, and his every move was shocking, but compared with the martial emperor who easily controlled the attributes of heaven and earth, there was a world of difference. Therefore, the most important thing for a person is to be happy. Whoosh, the big palm fell down with a bang. It can be clearly seen from the telephoto lens that a visible airwave pressed down fiercely. It felt like a mountain collapsing and splashing dust. This process happened very quickly. Jun Changxiao only held the talisman in his hand and hadn't crushed it yet. At this moment, if he didn't have a way to escape, even the great Luo immortal couldn't save him, and he could only go to hell to sing. Jun Changxiao's heart was pounding, cold sweat ran down his back, and his whole face was almost distorted. This was partly due to the pressure and the aura, and partly from the foreknowledge of death. Death. Jun Changxiao had experienced it. Therefore, he understood the importance of being alive better than others. I haven't established the strongest sect yet, and I haven't said goodbye to being single to show off my love to readers. How can I die here? Snap. The escape talisman was crushed. Boom. Or thunder suddenly sounded in the clear sky, and then it was seen that the space seemed to be torn apart by some force, showing a huge gap. Whoosh, a stream of light flew out of the crack and fell like a meteor. The martial emperor who condensed the attributes of heaven and earth to bombard Jun Changxiao suddenly felt something was wrong in his heart. He looked up and said in surprise, "Not good." Boom. A huge noise rang out in the mountains and fields, and the entire ground shook. The birds and beasts within a radius of hundreds of miles were startled and ran around. What's going on? Is it an earthquake? In the nearest town, many martial artists and civilians took to the streets. They all looked in the direction where the sound came from, but found nothing unusual. The cracks that had just been torn in the sky had disappeared, and everything became normal, as if nothing had happened. Nothing happened here, but the area where Jun Changxiao was restrained just now had undergone tremendous changes, because a huge deep pit appeared out of thin air in the originally empty grassland, as if it was caused by a falling meteorite. Damn. At the bottom of the deep pit, a weak voice was heard, and then a hand was seen grabbing the edge, and a person slowly crawled out. The man's clothes were torn, and his hair was disheveled. His skin was exposed with dents and scars, as if he had been beaten. Jun Changxiao had disappeared from the area where the palm print had just hit, and the Iron Sect martial emperor who had attacked was also gone. Jun Changxiao disappeared because he crushed the escape talisman and escaped at the critical moment. As for the martial emperor, it was more miserable. At this moment, he was trapped at the bottom of the deep pit, in the shape of and he was completely unconscious. What happened? It was very simple. After the space was torn, the flying stream of light hit him without bias. The whole process happened so fast that a martial emperor didn't have time to think of defending himself. Who? The disheveled man who climbed out of the pit lay on the ground facing the sky and took a deep breath and then said, "I can hit him. He is unlucky enough." From this sentence, it is not difficult to see that the flowing light that knocked Wu Huang unconscious was actually this guy. But, then again, how could he suddenly fly out of the space crack and accurately hit the strong man of Iron Sect? Could it be that the escape talisman that Jun Changxiao crushed just now still has the summoning ability and directly summoned a strong man from the void to solve him? This operation is too cool, right? Catcher. The disheveled man clenched his hands tightly, and a crisp sound came out. He said angrily, "You forced me to lower my cultivation and escape to the lower world. This revenge will be avenged sooner or later." After saying this, the bruised skin began to shrink strangely, and the body that looked like an adult gradually turned into a teenager. The side effect of lowering my cultivation is that my body weakens, as if I have returned to my youth. The body I worked so hard to build has also become fragile as my muscles shrink. The man murmured, his eyes flashing with anger that became stronger and stronger. All because he used up all his strength and shouted angrily, "I don't even know who stole the 7 mysterious clouds broken scroll. I'm even more unlucky than the guy lying below." Chapter 461, The Boy with Divine Power. The broken fragments of the 7 mysterious clouds? Could it be that this person is Yiwudi, who was hunted down by many powerful people in the endless void? It's him. Ah. I didn't expect this miserable person to appear in the Xinjiang continent, and in this way. It's really incredible. In fact, Yiwudi didn't want to, but he couldn't take out the broken fragments of the 7 mysterious clouds, and others thought it was on him, so he could only be hunted down endlessly, to the ends of the earth. He didn't want to die, he wanted to live, so in desperation, he used a special magical power to directly tear the space, cross the void, and enter a lower level plane. Judging from the breath he exuded when he was hunted, he was a very terrifying existence. But after coming here, due to the huge side effects of using the magical power, his physical body and cultivation were weakened, and his soul power was also hit hard in the process of crossing the void. Now Yiwudi looks like a teenager, and his cultivation has been wasted. He is lucky to be alive. In this way, he is similar to Yu Xingqian. However, he is the protagonist of a strong man who falls into trouble, while Yidi is the protagonist of a strong man who is reborn. Yiwudi lay on the ground for a while, stood up with difficulty, and said, "The attributes of this low-level mortal world are different from those of the previous world, and they are very weak. I have a lot of advanced martial arts, but it is difficult to play any role. This is the most tragic. Without cultivation, you can continue to practice and make a comeback. but coming to the Starfall continent is equivalent to changing the cultivation environment. In the past, martial arts either required special attributes or were unfathomable and could not be used for comprehension, which was equivalent to directly falling from the full level to the zero level. What made Hiwudi even more depressed was that when he was performing his magical powers, he clearly locked a lower realm that matched his martial arts. How could he come to such a plane with a completely different style after crossing the void? Maybe the injury is too serious and the mind is slightly unstable and there is a deviation. Although he was very disappointed, Hiwudi was still very satisfied to be able to avoid the pursuit of the strong. It doesn't matter if the body, cultivation, and soul power are gone. As long as he was alive, he would have the opportunity to become stronger, return to the top, and take revenge. More importantly, his invincible talent was still there. In this mortal world, with my qualifications, I can definitely surpass all the heroes and beat all geniuses. So as long as I get in touch with their martial arts, it will be easy for me to become the strongest in a short time. Hiwudi dragged his weak body away. He now needed to find a place to recuperate. As for the Wuhuang of Lingyuan sect, he was still unconscious in the deep pit. When he woke up, he would definitely be puzzled as to why he was suddenly plotted against. Plop. Time went back to the moment when Sect Master Jun crushed the talisman. The whole person appeared out of thin air in a mountain thousands of miles away from the area where the big palm had just pressed down and then sat directly on the ground. Huh. He took a deep breath and said, "Escaped. Escaped." The system said, "Damn it." Jun Changxiao lay directly on the ground and said with lingering fear, "It's too dangerous." Although crushing the escape talisman helped him get rid of danger, it also brought huge side effects. At this moment, his body seemed to be hollowed out. But, recalling the escape just now, Jun Changxiao murmured, "Before leaving, I seemed to hear thunder. What's going on?" The system said, "The principle of the escape talisman is to cross the void, so it is normal to cause strange phenomena in the world." Is that so? Jun Changxiao understood. From this conversation, it is not difficult to see that he was unaware of the appearance of Hiwudi and the subsequent events. And from what the system said, it can also be heard that the unlucky guy from other planes had a deviation in crossing the void and appeared in the Starfall continent, which may have some inevitable connection with crushing the escape talisman. This series of things is not only very strange, but also very coincidental. Strange. Jun Changxiao took a short break and said, "How can a fourth-rate sect have a martial emperor?" The system said, "The man's breath is unstable, and he should have just broken through not long ago." Oh. Jun Changxiao stopped thinking about it. Because of his weak body, he could only lie quietly on the grass. At this time, even ordinary beasts can eat the host. Can't you hope for me to be well? About half an hour later, the Hurricane Wolf King rushed out of the forest with Xia Lang Lang on his back. Sect Master Jun, who was still very nervous when he heard the noise, breathed a sigh of relief when he saw his contracted beast coming. That's not right. Why is the Hurricane Wolf King here? Or did it slip away in advance when he was being chased by the Martial Emperor? How smart. The Hurricane Wolf King did not slip away and came here safely because the strong man of Lingyuan sect was knocked unconscious. If Hiwudi hadn't suddenly appeared from the sky, even if he used the escape technique to escape thousands of miles away, he might not have escaped the pursuit of the Martial Emperor. The side effects lasted for 2 hours. After it dissipated, Jun Changxiao gradually recovered his strength, then rode on the Hurricane Wolf King and headed towards the Kangshan sect. When he reached a mountain, he faintly heard the roar of a wolf beast, so he released his newly recovered spiritual thoughts. 20 miles away, dozens of ordinary wild wolves were surrounding a young man with messy hair and wounds all over his body. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, "How pitiful." The young man was seriously injured and had no martial arts aura. He was obviously an ordinary person. He dared to enter the forest. Isn't this tantamount to seeking death? Thinking that he had just escaped death, sect leader Jun suddenly felt compassion and decided to help him. However, just as he was about to leave, he was surprised to find that, although the boy was seriously injured and had no cultivation, he could actually blast away several attacking wolf beasts with his fists. Jun Changxiao was a little confused. He was sure that the boy, who was covered by the spiritual thoughts, had no martial arts aura at all, and even if he didn't open a meridian, it was incredible that he could punch and fly away a wolf beast weighing 300 or 500 kilograms. The system said maybe he was born with supernatural powers. Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up immediately. Even though he was injured, he could still fight dozens of wolf beasts with his bare hands. This is definitely a good seedling for practicing martial arts. If he is taken in and trained well, he will definitely have a great future. Go save him. Swish. The Hurricane Wolf King rushed away. Boom. Boom. In the mountains and fields, he swung his fist and blasted away 2 wolf beasts again. Although his face was a little ferocious because of his injuries, his eyes were filled with disdain. I'm a dignified sage king. Even though I'm now in a desperate situation, I'm not someone that a group of wild wolves can easily bully. More than 20 wolf beasts also realized that the human in front of them was not simple, so after their attacks failed, they stopped and confronted him with their teeth bared. Awoo. At this moment, the howling of wolves came from the forest, and then a burly wolf beast was seen walking towards them on the wind vortex. Trouble. He frowned. Chapter 462 Little Brother, Big Brother. When the Hurricane Wolf King appeared, dozens of wild wolves were so frightened that they quickly lay on the ground, not even daring to raise their heads. A wolf king of this level is the sky in their eyes. Trouble. He frowned. The wolf beast that suddenly appeared was definitely the king of wolf beasts, and its strength was extraordinary. In the past, he could definitely kill it with his eyes, but now he was seriously injured, and it was difficult to deal with ordinary wild wolves, let alone to compete with it. Awoo. The Hurricane Wolf King raised his head and roared, his eyes locked on Hewudi fiercely. Judging from the rhythm, it seemed that he was preparing to attack. Damn it. Hewudi cursed inwardly. It was not easy to rely on magical powers to get rid of a group of strong men chasing and killing. As a result, he had to die in the mouth of a wolf beast just after arriving in the mortal world. This was really unwilling. Swish. The Hurricane Wolf King pounced directly and opened his bloody mouth. Hewudi was desperate. He was too seriously injured, and his body was seriously degraded. He couldn't make any counterattacks or dodge at all. Little brother, don't panic. At this moment, a voice came from behind. Jun Changxiao suddenly stepped forward, gathered strength in his right fist, and hit the Hurricane Wolf King in the face, knocking him out with a bang. One's own people fighting one's own people. What kind of play is this? The process happened in a flash. If it were an ordinary person, he would probably be stunned, but Hewudi remained calm and stared at the man who rescued him. In this world, he murmured, there are actually men who are more handsome than me. Jun Changxiao almost fell to the ground when he heard this. He was almost dead, and he was still thinking about this kind of thing. There must be something wrong with his brain. Oh, the Hurricane Wolf King retreated a long way. His eyes were filled with fear, and then he ran away with his tail between his legs. He was devastated and thought, isn't it just a play? Why is he really so heavy-handed? After the Wolf King left, more than 20 wild wolves were also scared and ran around. Little brother. Jun Chang smiled and said, are you okay? Let the Hurricane Wolf King act as the villain and be the hero himself, win the favor of the boy, and then recruit him. This routine is played well. It's okay. Hewudi responded and turned to leave. Although he was very grateful that someone saved him, he was upset by the little brother. Little brother. Jun Changxiao shouted, you didn't even say thank you and just left like that. Isn't it too rude? Thank you. Watching that guy leave, Sect Master Jun shook his head and said, I thought he would be grateful. Such a good seedling, can't be let go. Jun Changxiao hurriedly chased after him and said, little brother, you should not have come into contact with martial arts yet. When I fucking came into contact with martial arts, you were still a liquid. Little brother, are you interested in joining the sect I founded? When I fucking established the water court, you were still a liquid. Little brother. Hewudi stopped and interrupted in a panic. Big brother. Big brother, can you please stop calling me that? Jun Chang smiled and said, you look only 16 or 17 years old, and I'm already 18. If I don't call you little brother, what should I call you? Speaking of the word address, He Woody recalled his glorious past and couldn't help but blurt out, "You can call me the Invincible King." The Invincible King? Jun Chang smiled and twitched his lips, muttering in his heart, "This must be a fantasy-loving middle school boy. If a person is not middle school, he is not a good boy. I like it very much. I appreciate it very much. Okay." Jun Chang smiled and said, "Little brother." He Woody pulled his hair in despair, pointed in a random direction, and said, "Go now." He lost his cultivation and fell into a plane that was not compatible with martial arts. It was already a big blow to him. Now there was a chatterbox following him, calling him little brother all the time, which almost made him cry. "Little brother." Jun Chang smiled and said, "My sect is short of people now. You stop talking." He Woody stopped him from speaking again. But as soon as he finished speaking, he spurted out a mouthful of blood due to his injury. The crossing of the void by his body and soul brought him great damage, and the battle with the wild wolf just now was undoubtedly worse. To be honest, He Woody can still walk. That's because he has a good foundation. Little brother. Jun Chang smiled and said, "I have a healing pill here that can help you get rid of your injuries." He Woody smiled bitterly. The injuries on his body were caused by being bombarded by strong men and crossing the void. How could the mortal pills heal them? Swish. Jun Changxiao suddenly reached out and grabbed He Woody's chin and threw the first grade healing pill into it. This kind of pill that can instantly heal injuries is scrambled for in the Qingyang County Earth rank, but now it is forced to be fed to others. He Woody was angry, but as soon as he opened his mouth, the melted medicine juice merged into his body and immediately formed a recovery force, repairing the damaged meridians. It only took a moment. The pain and scars on his muscles quickly disappeared and healed, and his pale face gradually turned red. He Woody was completely dumbfounded. Coming from a high-level plane, he had eaten a lot of high-level pills, but he had never seen such a pill that could quickly recover from injuries. It was amazing. It was incredible. Jun Chang smiled and said, "Little brother, how is the effect?" "Big brother," He Woody said solemnly, "what kind of pill is this that can quickly recover from injuries?" A little brother and a big brother. The relationship between the two is very complicated, and it is unclear who is older and who is younger. Want to know? Jun Chang smiled and said, "Join a sect, I'll tell you." He Woody was silent for a moment and said, "What sect? Is it very strong in this world?" "My sect is called the Strongest Sect." "Hey, why are you leaving? The name of this sect sounds like a joke. How could I possibly join it?" Jun Chang smiled, and the corners of his mouth twitched. As for the name of the sect, not to mention many passers-by who only looked at the name, even he couldn't help but complain. He had considered changing the name, but after thinking about it, he still felt that this one was the most interesting. "What do you think, little brother?" Jun Changxiao chased after him and explained, "Although the name of Mighty Strongest Sect is weird, everyone in it is a talent, and they are also very prestigious in Xinjiang continent." "Not interested," He Woody said. He now hopes to understand this world and the cultivation system as soon as possible, start to concentrate on cultivation, strive to return to the peak as soon as possible, and then sneak up again. "Little brother." Jun Changxiao certified, "Join Mighty Strongest Sect. I will accept you as my last disciple and provide all kinds of martial arts and resources for free. You just need to practice, and the opportunity will not come again." Even without cultivation, he can fight with the wolf pack. This is definitely a natural supernatural power. If he is trained, he will be the meat shield of the sect. He must be taken down no matter what. He Woody was not interested in being a last-ditch disciple, but his eyes lit up when he saw that martial arts and resources were provided for free. He was not sure whether this Iron Sect was strong or not, but since he had just arrived and was unfamiliar with the place, he might as well join in to get familiar with it. If it didn't work out, he could just leave. Yeah, Li Xingchen had thought so before. Now, He Woody stopped and said, "Will you really accept me as your last-ditch disciple?" "Of course." "Free martial arts resources?" "Of course." "Okay," He Woody said, "seeing that big brother is so sincere, I will join with reluctance." Swish. Jun Changxiao hurriedly took out the entry form and said, "Name." He Woody. "This name is invincible." "Gender." He said speechlessly. I think I should be a man. Chapter 463. The Last Disciple. Jun Changxiao valued He natural power. He had just arrived and needed to understand everything about the continent, so the two of them hit it off and became accomplices. This might be. It was God's will. Let's go. Jun Changxiao took out the headmaster ball, summoned the purple lightning young tiger and said, follow me to Strongest Sect. Since he has been accepted as a disciple, he must not call him little brother anymore. Thunder monster? He was quite surprised and thought to himself, this boy is so young, but he can control such a rare monster. It's not easy. Headmaster? He asked, follow behind. Although he used to have a high level of cultivation, he was not arrogant. Now he has accepted the reality of falling from the full level to the zero level, so he joined the Strongest Sect and regarded himself as a disciple, much stronger than Yi Xingchen. After that guy took over the body and was reborn, he always regarded himself as a martial emperor and acted like a very cool guy. As a result, he was severely beaten by the headmaster Jun with the ball. When living in the world, people must know how to adapt to the environment. For people like He, although he is in trouble temporarily, he has a good mentality, and it is only a matter of time before he returns to the top. For people like Yi Xingchen, if he had not met sect leader Jun and joined the Strongest Sect, there would definitely be many twists and turns and dangers on his way to growth. Of course, although He is strong, he is not the top in his plane. In order to survive, he will tolerate and compromise, so he has this kind of character. Yi is different. In his previous life, he was one of the 10 martial emperors of the Xinjiang continent and the strongest. Only those who have reached the top and overlooked all the mountains will have that kind of arrogance and self-centeredness. Snap. Jun Changxiao snapped his fingers. Swish. The Hurricane Wolf King hiding in the dark rushed out. You ride it. Jun Changxiao said. Seeing the Wolf Beast King that was just beaten out, He was startled, and then he understood something and said with a twitch of his mouth, Master, you just tricked me. Don't talk nonsense. Jun Chang smiled and said, hurry up and ride. Let's hurry up. When she was accepted into the sect, she was called Little Sweetie. After she was accepted into the sect, she showed her power as the master and called her Madam Niu, which was really shameless. At that moment, He felt that joining the sect was like falling into a wolf's den. However, this kid has a thunder monster and the king of wolf beasts. Maybe the Iron Bone Sect is really strong. If you are satisfied, practice. If it is very ordinary, just find a chance to leave. When He murmured in his heart, the Hurricane Wolf King spread his limbs and rushed out like the wind. He almost lost his grip and was thrown off, howling, I'm just an ordinary person now, can't I take care of myself? Invincible. On the way, Jun Changxiao said loudly, remember, the first purpose of Mighty Strongest Sect is to be a person of iron bones and do things of iron bones. The system added, host, don't pinch the escape talisman. Get lost. Strongest Sect. The 2 martial kings and 20 martial masters killed by Jun Changxiao have been dealt with, and the space ring was taken away by Yi Xingchen. In the past year of practicing in the Strongest Sect, the thing he learned most was looting. Swish. Swish. Not long after, the purple lightning young tiger and the Hurricane Wolf King jumped in from outside. Master Jun. Master Yu, who had been waiting for a long time, hurriedly said, did Shooting Feng run away, or kill him? Jun Changxiao said. Master Yu's mouth twitched. There were so many masters from the 2 sects of Zhejiang County, and he solved them all, leaving no one alive. He was really fierce. This is. Sect Master Yu looked at He. Jun Changxiao said, I just accepted him as a disciple. Sect Master Yu was stunned. He went to hunt down Shooting Feng and accepted another disciple along the way. What kind of operation is this? Yi Xingchen glanced at He and thought to himself, a vulgar mortal. Lu Kai and Qian was still cold. If Suzaomo and Li Fei were present, they would have hooked their arms around the shoulders of the new disciple and started chatting enthusiastically. Where is Elder Ma? He has been sent to the medicine hall for treatment. Jun Changxiao hurried to the medicine hall and gave Ma Yunteng a medium grade healing pill. What? Sect Master Jun is the double king of sword and martial arts. What? 3 martial kings and 20 martial masters were killed by him alone. After waking up, Elder Mo learned everything from Wang Danglin. His eyes widened, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Master Yu. In the main hall, Jun Chang smiled and bowed, saying, Zhenjiang County is invading, and I still have to defend Qingyang City, so I'll take my leave first. Master Jun, for the sake of the people, you dare to compete with the 6th class counties. I admire you very much. Master Yu said seriously, my Kangshan sect is willing to assist your sect in defending Qingyang County. At this time, he had to express his position. I will never consider whether to participate in the war. No need. Jun Changxiao said, I can handle the next thing very well. Sect Master Yu was stunned. 6th class Zhenjiang County, 2 4th-rate sects. Can Sect Master Jun handle it? How would he handle it? Sect Master Yu. Jun Changxiao stood up and bowed, saying, I'll take my leave first. He was also resolute and decisive. After saying that, he hurriedly left with Lu Kai and Qian, Yi Xingchen and He Wudi, who had just been accepted as his disciple. On the way, he didn't even think about it. He opened the middle-level mall and bought a first-grade spiritual medicine to return the contribution value to normal. Thinking of the martial emperor who came to kill him before, Jun Changxiao realized that this matter would definitely be let go, so he took out the exemption card and engraved the 3 words Zhenjiang County on it. He was worried that the strong man from the Yuan sect would come to kill him again, so he urgently hoped to enter the exemption state as soon as possible. As for whether it worked or not, he could only pray in his heart. Whoosh! At this moment, the exemption card flashed a dazzling light. The system said, it's effective. Really? Jun Changxiao was overjoyed. In the deep pit, the Lingyuan sect's Wu Liang, who had been knocked unconscious, finally woke up. He covered his head and stood up, his face grim, saying, it hurts, it hurts. No. Am I not practicing in the sect? How could I be here? The Wuhan climbed out of the deep pit, looking at the unfamiliar environment around him, full of confusion. He tried to recall, but couldn't remember anything. This is the effect of the exemption card. Gilan sect has already attached himself to the governor of Zhenjiang County. After the exemption card came into effect, he temporarily forgot all his hatred. In fact, it makes sense when you think about it. Gilan sect and Duanshu Pavilion came to arrange it on the orders of the governor. Jun Changxiao came to help, and killing their people was equivalent to making enemies with Zhenjiang County. Zhenjiang County was written on the exemption card. Once it came into effect, all the grievances related to Zhenjiang County would be forcibly wiped out. Time, 3 months. When the effect is gone, both the Wuhan and Zhenjiang County will return to normal. At that time, those who should be killed, and those who should be attacked. Jun Changxiao didn't know that, after returning to Qingyang City, he was still actively deploying defenses, worried that the exemption card was unreliable. Master. A few days later, Li Luoqiu sent a message, Heian County has also fallen, but the main force of the White Tiger Legion has withdrawn, and has no intention of attacking Qingyang County. Hearing this, Jun Changxiao felt relieved. Since the exemption effect has expired, he handed the city to Ziguangcan again, and then took his disciples back to the sect. Master. On the way, He Wudi said, as agreed, the close disciple. Yes. After returning to the sect, Jun Changxiao arranged him in front of the gate, responsible for closing the door every night. Really, the close disciple. Standing in front of the red lacquer gate, He Wudi was messy in a gust of wind, and his heart collapsed and said, what kind of routine is this? P.S. I have something to do tomorrow and there will be no update at 0 hours. This update is the 4th update today. Tomorrow, it is estimated that it will be night. I will be outside during the day, and it may be the 2nd update. Chapter 464 Routine. With the joining of He Wudi, the Tegu sect had a true last disciple. Haha. No, I'm going to laugh myself into a choke. Suzaomo and the others held their stomachs and laughed. At first, he was very puzzled when he learned that the headmaster wanted to accept the newly joined He Wudi as the last disciple. As a result, they laughed so hard that they couldn't close their mouths. Standing in front of the door, the corners of He Wudi's mouth twitched violently. That guy first let the contracted beast attack him, which was a routine. Then he promised to accept him as the last disciple, which was still a routine. This is really linked together. Boy, he thought to himself, do you think you can keep a disciple like me who is so talented by using routines? He began to calculate that if the Tegu sect didn't have anything to attract him, he would leave immediately. Brother, be careful. A voice came. He turned his head and then heard a bang, and his whole face was hit by the happy football. Bang, it hit the inner wall, forming a swastika shape. Li Fei, standing on the martial arts field, scratched his head and said with embarrassment, brother, I really didn't mean it. Suzaomo said, I can see that. Junior brother Li Qingyang took He to the inner courtyard room and said, this is your room, which contains the sect's uniforms and sect rules. Get up early tomorrow, do routine exercises, and then I will take you to the Gongfa Pavilion. Hearing the 3 words Gongfa Pavilion, He eyes suddenly lit up. He was eager to understand the martial arts of this world faster, and then practice from the most basic. However, the next day, he put on a brand new school uniform and danced with the disciples, and his face was filled with despair. This is too shameful, too embarrassing. Strangely enough, after doing morning exercises, He actually felt comfortable all over and energetic. Without thinking about why, he hurriedly followed Li Qingyang to the Gongfa Pavilion. The Gongfa Pavilion was not too big, and there were not many martial arts on the shelves, which disappointed He a little. He also realized that the Tegu sect was not a famous sect. First, choose a method to practice, and then find a time to leave. He thought secretly, and began to choose. Junior brother you have just entered the sect and your meridians have not been opened, so you should practice your Jinjing first. Li Qingyang suggested. Okay, senior brother. He also knew that he was starting from scratch, and there was no need to practice martial arts such as boxing and palm techniques for the time being, so he chose Jinjing and left. On the shelf at the back, the secret book was the broken fragments of the 7 mysterious clouds. I don't know what expression He will have when he sees the martial arts that disappeared out of thin air and placed them in the Tegu sect. Li Qingyang took He to choose the secret book, and also took him to the Danyao Pavilion to collect the elixir resources, and then carefully introduced the sect's practice place. Our second senior brother is very competent. He who was tricked and kicked in the face by the ball, was a little unhappy. But seeing this young man so enthusiastic, he also improved his favorability towards the sect a little bit. After returning to the room, He opened the Yijinjing and murmured, with my demon-like qualifications, isn't it easy to practice this low-level martial arts? He was very confident. However, when he began to read the Yijinjing, he gradually became unable to extricate himself, and finally exclaimed, incredible. Why incredible? He couldn't say. But what is certain is that the Yijinjing in this plane is definitely not an ordinary product. Although he has never practiced in the Xinjiang continent and is not familiar with the practice style here, he can tell from the martial arts that it is an extraordinary product, worthy of being a master. I don't have martial arts cultivation now, and my meridians are blocked because of crossing the space. Practicing this kind of mental method should be able to open them all easily. He hurriedly began to practice. Although this mental method is different from the previous practice, it emphasizes the operation of the big and small Zaoshan, so it is not too difficult. Sure enough, he murmured, the martial arts are all similar. His aptitude was really strong. After only half an hour of practice, he was able to circulate the Yijinjing. TSK, he exclaimed, it actually has the function of tempering the body. It is really the best mind method for beginners. Practice. After only one day, he successfully gathered the weak spiritual energy in his body and opened up the blocked first meridian, entering the first stage of opening meridians. This speed is very fast. Tao Yun, who was taken to the Tegu sect, was also given a separate room, which was not locked yet, so he could move freely. The exemption card took effect, and he temporarily lost his memory, forgetting that he was defeated, and became a prisoner. Creaky. The door opened, and Jun Changxiao walked in, saying with a smile, General Tao, are you used to living here? Tao Yuan hurriedly bowed and said, Master Jun, I seem to have forgotten a lot of things, and I don't know why I was imprisoned, but thank you for saving me. Jun Changxiao knew that the exemption card took effect and could force all enemies to erase their memories, so he pretended to be a masked hero and rescued him from the Qingyang City dungeon. This routine was played very well. General Tao, to be honest, I saved you because I admire you. You have no sect or school, so why don't you join the Tiguzheng sect? Jun Changxiao said with a smile. Tao Yuan was silent. At this moment, his stomach growled. Jun Changxiao said, I have prepared wine and food. Tao Yuan was really hungry, and because of his memory loss, he was in a neutral state with Jun Changxiao, so he followed him to the cafeteria. It smells so good. Woody, who had just walked in and was sitting in the corner, sighed while eating. As expected, the food made by Liu Wanshi was hard for even the top masters to bear. Tao Yuan sat down with Jun Changxiao. Yahui and Ahui began to serve the dishes, each of which was cooked in a separate stove. Woody took a look at the various dishes, then looked at the fried rice he was eating, and the corners of his mouth twitched. This is too much discrimination. General Tao, Jun Changxiao said, please taste it, my Iron Bone School's simple food. Tao Yuan was really hungry, and he politely bowed first, then picked up the chopsticks and started eating. As soon as a mouthful of food entered his mouth, he looked dazed, and when he swallowed it, his facial expression gradually stiffened. He spent the whole day in the military camp, eating the same food as the soldiers. How could he have tasted such delicious food? Master Jun. Tao Yuan couldn't help but said, I have never eaten such delicious food. If you like it, eat more. Jun Chang smiled. Tao Yuan didn't eat it, put down his chopsticks, and said seriously, Master Jun rescued me from the dungeon and arranged good food and wine. I'm very grateful, but as for joining the sect, he didn't continue, but from the following words, it was obvious that he refused. Jun Chang smiled and said, General Tao, if you join, I will accept you as my last disciple, and all martial arts resources will be provided free of charge. Poof. Woody, who was sitting in the corner, spit out a mouthful of rice. Chapter 465, Training Tower 3rd Floor. Tao Yuan, who had been hungry for several days, felt like he was about to fly to the sky after eating a delicious meal. But joining the Tigu sect made him feel very conflicted. To be honest, he was devoted to military affairs and had no intention of joining the sect. But for some reason, he was imprisoned in the dungeon and was rescued by Sect Master Jun, who treated him as a retinue. He was embarrassed to refuse too directly. Let's do this. Jun Changxiao said, General Tao, choose to live here for a while. He was not in a hurry to recruit, hoping to slowly influence Tao Yuan with Liu Wanshi's food and the atmosphere of the sect. Don't say it. It's very effective. Tao Yuan, who lived in the Tigu sect, saw the disciples of the Tigu sect doing morning exercises and practicing happily every day, and secretly exclaimed, such a happy sect is really rare. General Tao. One day, Jun Changxiao said, I'm a member of the Wolf Rider Hall. There is a military exercise today. Do you want to go and see it? Military exercise? Tao Yuan was immediately tempted. He followed Jun Changxiao to Tigu Mountain and stood on the peak. Below, Zhu Ringui waved his battle flag, and thousands of wolf riders appeared on the open grassland riding hurricane wolves. This? Tao Yuan said in surprise. Hurricane wolf. Jun Chang smiled and said, this is the wolf riders of my Tigu sect, similar to the cavalry, led by General Tao. Tao Yuan said with a serious look, the disciples of your sect riding such high-level wolf riders will definitely be invincible and unstoppable. Jun Chang smiled and thought to himself, your tiger power army was defeated by me. Swish. Zhu Ringui waved his battle flag. Swish. Swish. Thousands of wolf riders rushed forward, constantly changing their formations in the process, shocking Tao Yuan so much that he couldn't close his mouth. These disciples riding hurricane wolves can also skillfully use the formation, which is incredible. If his tiger power army fights against them, it will definitely be defeated miserably. Of course. What Tao Yuan cares more about is Zhu Ringui, who commands the wolf riders. Jun Changxiao said, General Tao, That's the head of my Wolf Riders Hall, a retired soldier who has done some research on military tactics. If you're interested, you can discuss it with him. Interested? Tao Yuan said bluntly. Jun Changxiao thought the opportunity had come, so he arranged for him to discuss it with Zhu Ringwei. The two discussed until late at night. Tao Yuan was a rising star in the military. Although he was talented, he was far inferior to a 5-star general. After just one day of conversation, he was completely impressed by Zhu Ringwei's understanding of the art of war. Zhu Ringwei also admired Tao Yuan. The two chatted more and more, and even had a long talk. One day, after the discussion, Tao Yuan bowed and said, Hall Master Zhu is really a great general, and I have benefited a lot from it. Zhu Ringwei smiled and said, General Tao is also humble and eager to learn. If he can meet a famous teacher, he will definitely become a 5-star general in the future. 5-star general? Tao Yuan's eyes suddenly showed infinite yearning. As a general, he cares not about breaking through the martial king, martial emperor or even martial emperor, but about obtaining the rank of 5-star general in his lifetime, because this is a proof of strength. General Tao, Zhu Ringwei said, excuse me, although Beirut, who is also a famous general, his ability is limited after all. Following him will only limit your future talents. Tao Yuan was silent. Moreover, Zhu Ringwei said again, as far as I know, Beirut, who is narrow-minded and extremely jealous. Once General Tao's military talent is fully demonstrated in Zhejiang County, he will definitely smell danger. Jun Changxiao, who had been releasing his spiritual thoughts to eavesdrop, touched his nose and said, Master Zhu's counter-espionage plan is very clever. Tao Yuan remained silent. He knew something about Beirut, whose character. Zhu Ringwei said seriously, General Tao, why don't you join the Iron Bone School, and you and I will work together to build the Wolf Cavalry and make them the strongest legion in the Star Meteoric Continent. The strongest legion in the Star Meteoric Continent? This sentence made Tao Yuan's blood burn all of a sudden. Any general would like to build the strongest army on the continent. Zhu Ringwei continued, General Tao should know the conditions for becoming a 5-star general, right? I know. Tao Yuan said. Those who obtain the rank of 5-star general must have a well-trained and powerful army. Zhu Ringwei created a super army in Zhangzhou, called Rinjun. It has always been ranked 3rd on the Xinjiang Continent Army Combat Power List, so he was awarded the rank of 5-star general. The White Tiger Army led by Beirut, who is also quite famous, so he was awarded the rank of 3-star general, but his ability is limited. It is difficult to become a 4-star general, let alone 5 stars. Although Tao Yuan's Tiger Power Army is not bad, its upper limit is so high that it can't help him get a higher rank. Although the Wolf Rider Hall is a sect, it can apply to become a legion, and its potential in the future will be huge. The head of the sect said. Zhu Ringwei said, if General Tao joins the Tigu sect, he can serve as the deputy head of the Wolf Riders Hall. Tao Yuan was silent for a while, and said, I'll think about it. Okay. Jun Changxiao grinned. In his opinion, Tao Yuan must be tempted, and it would only take a little time to join the Tigu sect. Sure enough, after a night of consideration, Tao Yuan came to the hall the next day and bowed, saying, Master Jun, I'm willing to join the Tigu sect. Jun Changxiao happily took out the entry form and filled in his name. At this time, with the exemption card, Tao Yuan joined the Tigu sect without any burden. When the effect disappeared, if he turned around and left, it would be a mess. So Master Jun said, after a while, I will appoint you as the deputy head, and you can be a close disciple first. Yes. So, in front of the gate stood not only He Wudi, but also Tao Yuan. They each had a door, and after dark, they were responsible for closing the door, which was fair and just. This, Tao Yuansheng said helplessly, is it the close disciple? After recruiting Tao Yuan, Jun Changxiao began to plan how to deal with Zhejiang County and 2 4th-rate sects 3 months later. Get stronger. Get stronger. The next day, Jun Changxiao first installed the sect equipment and began to distribute spirit stones and high-level key-gathering pills to the disciples in large quantities so that they can achieve a faster breakthrough. Master Li, Jun Changxiao said, you will take care of the sect affairs for the time being. I have decided to practice in seclusion. Yes. Li Luoqiu said. After everything was arranged, Jun Changxiao first practiced in the spirit gathering array for an hour, and then got up and went to the training tower. He did not temper his body on the first floor, nor did he temper his body skills on the second floor, but directly climbed to the third floor he had never been to. He stepped on it, and was in an area covered by the attributes of heaven and earth. Jun Changxiao took a breath and said, "What is the theme of this third level of experience? Host, try to punch." The system said. Swish. Jun Changxiao threw a punch, and said in surprise, "The spiritual energy is consumed very quickly." The system said, "The third level of training is to make the host consume spiritual energy too quickly, and then replenish it quickly, repeating this cycle to refine the purity of the spiritual core." Really? Jun Changxiao began to punch non-stop. With the energy of his two spiritual cores, he would have no problem fighting for days and nights in the outside world, but here, after only 2 hours of fighting, it was completely consumed. Hoo-hoo. Sit down cross-legged and practice Yijinjing. The attributes of heaven and earth existing in the third level emerged like a wave, and were replenished in just a few minutes. Jun Changxiao said in surprise, "If you fight with others, and your spiritual energy is exhausted, and then come in to replenish it, can't you keep fighting?" The system said, "The host is overthinking. The attributes here will only be replenished at the fastest speed if you consume them." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466, A Complete Training System, to ensure admission to Wuzang. The function of the third floor of the training tower is that when the spiritual energy explodes inside, it will spread out, and the spiritual energy absorbed is also absorbed by the spiritual energy discharged by oneself. In this way, the spiritual energy will be tempered. Jun Changxiao's idea of fighting with the enemies outside and coming in to absorb supplies is completely unrealistic. Okay. After being poured cold water by the system, he shrugged his shoulders and honestly began to squander his spiritual energy. Swish, 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 bang, bang, bang. The second time all the spiritual energy was exhausted, the area where Jun Changxiao was located was filled with rich spiritual energy, and the momentum was so great that it was breathtaking. With two spiritual cores, he has a lot of spiritual energy. The mental method was activated again, and the spiritual energy that spread out and collided with the heaven and earth attributes on the third floor returned to the body again. Two consecutive times made Jun Changxiao realize that the strength of spiritual energy has improved a little compared to before. Although it is not obvious, if you keep practicing, there will definitely be a good improvement in both spiritual energy and application. In martial arts, the physical body is the foundation. The real strength depends on the spiritual energy and the spiritual core. Even the simplest attack is a competition of spiritual energy strength, not to mention the use of various martial arts. Continue. Jun Changxiao began to practice seriously. Bang, bang, bang. Hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. A few hours later, Master Jun collapsed on the ground exhausted. Although spiritual energy can be volatilized and absorbed over and over again, physical strength cannot keep up, so even a sword and martial arts king as strong as him will be exhausted. The third floor is lit. Could it be that someone has gone in? Let's go in and take a look. Suzaomo and Li Fei climbed to the third floor first. When they saw Jun Changxiao lying inside, they suddenly realized, so the master is practicing. What is this third floor practice? It seems nothing special. The disciples who have been able to adapt to the second floor well gathered on the third floor. Because they didn't understand the function, they stood there and looked at each other. After a short break, Jun Changxiao told them about the function, and they began to bombard non-stop. The sad thing is, after playing a few times, some people's physical energy was greatly consumed, and finally they could not hold on. With a bang, their bodies exploded, and their soul bodies returned to their bodies, and then they were sent out with convulsions all over their bodies. The third level also has a punishment system, and excessive consumption will lead to side effects. In this way, the disciples became cautious. After determining their own limits, they would come to train for a certain time every day. The third level also has records. Because only disciples can count, even if Master Jun holds on for a few hours, he will still not be on the list. Yi Xingchen became the record holder of the first level of the training tower in 1.5 hours. A heavy voice sounded. After several days of training, Lord Yi became the first record holder with his magnificent spiritual energy and endurance. The first level of gravity training was first won by Zhao Zuji and then surpassed by Lu Qianqian, and he is still the leader. In the second level of body training, Suzuomo has a higher talent in this aspect, so he always occupies the record list. In the third level of spiritual energy training, it is natural for Yi, who practices Taixuan Sutra and Yijin Sutra, to occupy the record list. It can be said that among many disciples, Yi Xingchen has the most profound and powerful spiritual energy, and all of this comes from Taixuan Sutra. Bang! In the training room, Jun Changxiao punched the test machine, and the airwaves rushed, which was a huge momentum. The power value presented was 3 million Jin. TSK. The system exclaimed. In the Xinjiang continent, even the super first grade Martial King has a strength of only 2.5 million Jin. The host is 500,000 Jin higher than that, which is quite strong. Jun Changxiao grinned and said, "Does it mean that I'm already above the super level?" No. The system said, the host is still super, and the reason why the burst is so strong is because of the double kings of sword and martial arts. Is that so? Jun Changxiao punched a few more times, feeling that after training on the third floor of the training tower in the past few days, he has become more proficient in the use of spiritual energy. The system said, with the proficiency in the use of spiritual energy, the power of martial arts will also increase. It is recommended that the host should not only practice, but also experience, so as not to delay the two. Understood. Jun Changxiao continued to practice, practicing in the gathering spirit array in the morning, and spending the afternoon on the third floor of the experience tower. The disciples of the Tegu school were also practicing seriously. Many who had just entered the martial arts master level also made breakthroughs one after another. Their levels were getting higher and higher day by day, and their strength was getting stronger day by day. Among them, the ones who benefited the most were the inner disciples who were stuck at the peak martial arts master level, such as Li Qingyang and Zhao Zuji, because after practicing for a few days, they successively entered the martial arts master level. The condition for becoming a martial arts master is to have a deeper understanding of martial arts. This comprehension is to comprehend the spiritual energy and undergo a transformation in a certain sense. The training on the third floor of the training tower is equivalent to allowing the spiritual energy to undergo a transformation, so it also invisibly speeds up their comprehension and breakthrough. After Jun Changxiao realized this, he said happily, "Will it not be easier to break through when the disciples reach the peak martial arts master level and come to the third floor of the training tower to practice? It's not that troublesome." The system said, as long as the martial arts master level disciples are tempered step by step in it, they will enter the peak martial arts master level in the future, and it will be easy to break through the martial arts master level. Jun Changxiao couldn't help but be happy. There are cyclone pills and martial arts master pills. Now with the third floor of the training tower, after practicing with a whole set of systems, it is completely guaranteed to be sent to the martial arts master level. With the breakthrough of Li Qingyang and others, the number of martial arts masters in the Tegu sect has also been expanded. Because they are all at the extreme level, their combat effectiveness is no less than that of the 6th or 7th grade high level martial arts masters. The head of the sect is the double king of sword and martial arts, and the disciples are all comparable to high-level martial arts masters. The current strength of the Zheng sect, except for the small number of people, is completely comparable to the 5th-rate sect. If I go to Shengquan sect again, let alone win more than 70 games against the disciples, even if I challenge the elders, I can beat them into a pile of shit. Of course. The disciples have all improved, and our elder Jiang has also improved, finally advancing from the 2nd grade martial king to the 3rd grade martial king. It has been a while since I joined Tegu sect, and I have only been promoted to the 1st grade level, which is really a bit slow. However, Jiangzi was very excited after the breakthrough. It took him 2 or 3 years to advance from the 1st grade to the 2nd grade before. Now, not only has he broken through to the 3rd grade in a few months, but his level has also advanced from the higher level to the extreme level. This is definitely something that he could never dream of. Moreover, after experiencing the 2nd and 3rd floors of the training tower, Jiangzi realized more deeply that, as long as he continued to practice, the improvement of his strength in all aspects would only be more terrifying. So, anyone who enters Tegu sect and experiences the convenience and speed brought by various practices, will be addicted to it. There is an exception. That is the closed disciple Hiwudi. This person's qualifications are really strong. He opened up 7 meridians in 7 days, 1 meridian a day, which is simply unbelievable. At this rate, I will be able to open up the 12th level in 5 days. Hiwudi secretly said, after I break through to the martial arts apprentice level, I will leave the Tegu sect and go out to explore. He was able to become a saint lord at a high level by relying on various life and death experiences, so he did not like to practice in one place step by step. Besides, the Tegu sect has only more than 2,000 disciples, and they are only the 6th level in the Xinjiang continent. How can I condescend to this? Hiwudi's heart is towards the Sea of Stars. Therefore, after opening up the 12 meridians and breaking through to the martial arts apprentice level, he hurriedly packed his luggage one dark night and resolutely embarked on the journey to experience the outside world. Standing in front of the mountain gate, looking back at the Tegu sect, Hiwudi murmured, "Boy, if we meet next time, we will be in heaven and on earth." He is heaven. Jun Changxiao is earth. Swish. He waved his hand and strode away. However, just as he raised his foot, his body suddenly trembled, and his sea of consciousness seemed to explode. All his memories were wiped out in an instant. He rolled his eyes and fainted on the spot. Chapter 467. Poor Hiwudi. When accepting Hiwudi, sect leader Jun used many tricks, showing how eager a sect leader is to recruit talents. But once he accepted him as his disciple, he immediately became extremely cold and aloof, and even arranged for him to be a closed disciple. Why? Because joining the Tegu sect is equivalent to being directly bound. Quit the sect? Leave? Betray? Sure. First erase all the memories that should not exist. Jun Changxiao was a little worried at first, wondering if the system was lying to him. However, when Hiwudi had the intention to leave, he was ruthlessly deprived of his memory as soon as he walked out of the sect, proving that the restriction really exists. This memory not only contains the formula of Yijinjing, but also the realm that was broken through by benefiting from the mental method. Hiwudi fainted at the door. Not only did he forget a lot of things, but his cultivation level that had just broken through to the martial arts apprentice was also taken back, and he fell to level 0 again. It is really sad. Ding. Disciple Hiwudi has decided to quit, and his memory has been wiped. Ding. Sect members. 2527/5000. Hiwudi's memory was wiped, which meant he automatically left the sect, and one member was also reduced. Jun Changxiao, who was practicing in the spirit gathering array, shook his head after hearing the prompt and said, "You're leaving, just after breaking through to the martial arts apprentice?" He knew that he couldn't win people's hearts by relying on routines. Hiwudi definitely didn't join wholeheartedly, and he was also prepared for him to leave. But, leaving just after breaking through to the martial arts apprentice was too impatient. The system said, everyone has their own aspirations. All memories that shouldn't be there have been wiped out. The host can let him leave. That being said, Jun Changxiao murmured, "But such a good seedling, if you let him leave, it will be a loss to both myself and the Iron Bone Sect, so we must recruit him again." The system was silent. My head hurts. The next day, Hiwudi, who was carried back to the sect, covered his forehead and opened his eyes. His sea of consciousness was in chaos and his head was splitting. After taking a breath and looking at the unfamiliar environment, he secretly said, "Wasn't I besieged by wolf beasts?" The memory was erased for a long time, directly erasing the scene when he just arrived in Xinjiang continent and was attacked by wolf beasts in the wild. As for the future, he forgot everything. Creaky. The door was pushed open, and Jun Changxiao walked in from outside and said, "Little brother, you were saved by me." "Little brother?" Hiwudi's mouth twitched slightly, and he said weakly, "Where is this place?" "This is the Strongest Sect." Jun Changxiao said, I'm the head of this sect. Strongest Sect? What a name. He who had lost his previous memory, was tricked by the head of Jun like Tao Yuan, who was exempt from fighting. He thought he was really saved by him, and then he lived there. Little brother, since you have no father or mother, and no relatives in Xinjiang continent, why don't you join my Tegu sect? Jun Changxiao said. Join my Tegu sect, I will accept you as my last disciple, and provide you with all kinds of resources for free. The same routine, because he lost his memory, he believed it again, so he joined Tegu sect again, and then stood in front of the gate with Tao Yuan. Some people say, this is too stupid, right? In fact, it is not. He joined Tegu sect for the second time, and felt that he was a newcomer, and did not understand the world. He joined Tegu sect in the hope of getting familiar with it. His real idea was the same as the first time he joined Tegu sect. When he had enough understanding, he would definitely leave. That's it. He once again joined the Tegu sect, practiced Yijinjing once again, and took some time to break through to the martial arts apprentice level, and once again, master. The next day, Li Qingyang carried him into the hall, and said in a breakdown, junior brother, he fainted again. Will he lose his memory and cultivation? Yes. Jun Chang smiled and said, this is a disease. Li Qingyang's mouth twitched, so he cooperated with the master to play a play, accepted He as a disciple again, arranged a place for him to live as a new disciple, and brought him to the Gangfa pavilion for the third time. What a familiar feeling. He always felt a little familiar when he entered the Gangfa pavilion for the third time, but he couldn't figure it out, no matter how hard he thought. In the end, he chose Yijinjing again according to Li Qingyang's suggestion. A few days later, master Li Qingyang carried him again, and said in a breakdown, junior brother, he collapsed at the gate of the mountain again. His disease is very serious. Should we find a famous doctor to treat him? No. Jun Chang smiled and said, just continue to cooperate. Okay. Li Qingyang was about to send He to the medicine hall. Jun Chang smiled and stopped him. What martial arts did he choose when he went to the Gangfa pavilion these few times? This person always had the idea of leaving, and he always lost his memory and cultivation. Could it be that his own martial arts had no appeal to him? It shouldn't be. Even a martial arts king like Jiang Zi was very excited after practicing various martial arts. A guy without cultivation should be happy to see so many martial arts. Li Qingyang said, disciple suggests that junior brother he practice Yijinjing first. That won't work, it's too little. Jun Chang smiled and said, let him choose more martial arts. I cut, burst fist, and open mountain palm. Let him see them all. I understand. Wait, let him see the advanced martial arts, such as Chixiao Li Iron Slash and Kixo and Zheguang Po, so that he can be shocked. Yes. He woke up for the third time, and then was tricked by Master Jun in the same way. After joining the Tegu sect, he was brought to the Gangfa pavilion by Li Qingyang. The plot is exactly the same, but our second brother changed his lines and said, brother, our Tegu sect has many martial arts. You can choose and look at them at will, especially the last two rows, which are all high-level martial arts. High level? He felt a little disdainful. He just joined the Tegu sect temporarily to learn about the Xinjiang continent, so he naturally didn't believe that this sect would have any high-level martial arts. Because Li Qingyang didn't play according to the previous routine, he didn't choose Yijinjing, and began to browse the martial arts on the shelf, and looked at the explosion fist, open mountain palm and other martial arts. After flipping through the eye slash, he was secretly surprised and said, this kind of martial arts doesn't seem to be simple. Then, he looked at the seal shield, the cloud step and the sound transmission technique, and said in surprise, I didn't expect that the Tegu sect's martial arts are so comprehensive, and there are all kinds of types. It's a pity. Except for eye slash, the other martial arts are not comparable to the martial arts practiced in his own plane. While thinking, he came to the last shelf and saw Scarlet Sky Blazing Slash first. After flipping through it casually, he murmured, it's barely acceptable. A divine martial art, barely acceptable. What a great thing to say. He put Scarlet Sky Blazing Slash down and took out another secret book on the shelf. Boom. Seeing the name of the martial art on it, he was stunned in place, as if struck by lightning. After a while, Woody rubbed his eyes to make sure that he had not read the name wrong, and then exclaimed in disbelief, 7. 7 Mysterious Clouds of Light Broken Remains Volume 1. Chapter 468, Creation. Woody got the first fragment of the 7 mysterious clouds, and was hunted down. At that time, he planned to throw it away to save his life, but as soon as he took it out, it disappeared out of thin air. The thing was gone, and he couldn't explain it clearly, so he could only continue to be hunted down. He was hunted down from the south gate to the west gate, and from the east gate to the north gate. In the end, he had no choice but to use his magical powers to cross the space in desperation. A high-level account was hunted down by a group of high-level accounts, and was finally hunted down to a zero-level account. Looking at Iwudi's experience, he can definitely bear the word tragedy. The cause of all this was the disappearance of the 7 mysterious clouds. Now that he has come to the mortal world and joined the Tegu sect, he actually saw the missing fragment of the secret book in the Gangfa pavilion. Iwudi was struck by lightning. Why is it here? Why is it here? No. Iwudi observed carefully and found that the fragment was as new as before, and it did not exude an unfathomable aura, so he guessed, this is not the original. Is it just a coincidence of the same name? He flipped through it hastily and found that the formula and operation method recorded on it were the same as what he had seen, so he said with certainty, this must be a copy. The martial arts from the higher planes have copies in the mortal world, which made Iwudi stunned. Brother Li Qingyang said, are you okay? No, I'm fine. Iwudi forced himself to calm down and said, Brother Li, this secret book seems to be not simple. How can our Tegu sect have it? Li Qingyang thought that the reason for his shock was that the level of martial arts was too high, so he didn't care and explained, Brother our Tegu sect is actually a large sect that inherits from ancient times. A large sect that inherits from ancient times? Iwudi was stunned. Li Qingyang told him about Aole country, Huago mountain and Tegu mountain one by one. After learning about it, Iwudi was silent. No wonder, Tegu sect didn't have too many disciples, but there were many various skills. It turned out that it was an ancient sect. But the 7 mysterious lights break was created by the 7 mysterious saint of his own plane. How could the Iron Bone Sect have it? Wait. Iwudi suddenly remembered that the mighty 7 mysterious saint did not seem to be a person from his own plane, but ascended from a certain mortal world. The Iron Bone Sect, which inherited the ancient times, has such a martial art, and the 7 mysterious saint ascended. Is there any connection between the two? Brother Li. Iwudi asked, where is the first head of our Iron Bone Sect now? He had a bold idea. The 7 mysterious saint is likely to be related to the first head of the Iron Bone Sect, or they may be the same person. In this way, it is easy to explain why the Iron Bone Sect has a copy of the 7 mysterious lights break fragment. Li Qingyang shook his head and said, I'm afraid only the head of the Iron Bone Sect knows where the senior son who founded the Iron Bone Sect is. This senior son is the Monkey King Sun Wukong made up by Jun Changxiao. Only the head of the sect knows. Iwudi secretly said, I have to ask. Puff. Jun Changxiao, who was sitting in the hall, spit out a mouthful of tea and thought, do you really regard the Tegu sect as an ancient sect and Sun Wukong as the founder of the sect? Ziohe. He put down the teacup and said, is this question important? Iwudi said, my Tegu sect has many martial arts, and I'm also very curious about the past of the sect. Jun Changxiao's brain was working quickly, and he said, this is the secret history of the sect. However, for the sake of your closed disciple, it doesn't matter if I tell you. Iwudi immediately pricked up his ears. Jun Changxiao said seriously, in fact, the first leader who founded the Tegu sect, after experiencing 81 difficulties, wore a golden armor and stepped on 7 colored clouds to ascend to the upper realm. These martial arts of the sect were also left by him. 7 colored clouds, ascending to the upper realm. Isn't this a perfect match for the 7 mysterious saints who control 7 attributes? Sure enough. Iwudi suddenly realized and thought to himself, the great sage equaling heaven and the same Kixuan who created the Tegu sect are the same person. This Zingayan continent should be the birthplace of his ascension to the upper world. Jun Changxiao never dreamed that his nonsense could match the same Kixuan of the higher plane, and that this guy could force his imagination to make up for it. He Woody, who returned to the wing room, thought about it for a whole night and became more and more excited. Saint Kixuan is a very top-notch strong man. He accidentally crossed the void and came to the world where he once lived and joined the sect he created. This is completely fate. Fate. It's completely coincidental. If I practice here, maybe I can peek into higher mysteries in the future and thus break through to the unattainable realm of Saint. The more Woody thought about it, the more excited he became. He secretly decided, I will practice in the Tegu sect. Under many coincidences, he believed that the Tegu sect was founded by the 7 mysterious saints and was the birthplace of the stronger ones, so his mentality also changed greatly. Leave. Impossible. After experiencing 3 amnesias and joining the Tegu sect 4 times, Woody finally figured it out and really integrated himself into it and began to practice seriously. Because of the 7 mysterious saints, he even had aura of Master Jun. After all, he was the current master of the sect. If he wanted to peek into a higher level of martial arts in the future, he might be able to provide a lot of help. Night fell. Close the door. Woody shouted loudly, then closed the door with a smile on his face, fully bringing himself into the role of the closed disciple. Master. Li Qingyang, who was standing in front of the main hall, said puzzledly, Junior brother, he seems very happy. Jun Chang smiled and stood with his hands behind his back and said, because he has completely understood what a strong will is. It's just, Li Qingyang said, Junior brother's strange illness will likely recur if it is not cured. His illness is half caused by inner demons. Once the inner demons are gone, he will naturally get better. Jun Chang smiled. Speaking of strange diseases, he thought of Zijingsun and couldn't help but secretly said, I wonder if the first grade spiritual medicine can cure her eye disease. I once said that I would visit my Ahua palace again. After the matter in Zhejiang County is dealt with, I can go and take a look. The system said, why doesn't the host go there now? If you can cure the eye disease of the palace master of my Ahua palace, it is equivalent to doing a big favor. If she knows that the Tegu sect is in trouble, she may come forward to help. This. Jun Changxiao hesitated for a moment and said, why didn't I think of it? My Ahua palace is a 4th-rate sect. If a first-grade spiritual medicine can be used to make friends with it, it will definitely be beneficial without any harm. Moreover, according to the information he has, my Ahua palace is located in a 5th-class county. Although it is a 4th-class sect like Iron sect and Duanshu Pavilion, its strength should only be stronger. Jun Changxiao slapped his forehead and said, I always think that Palace Master Z is a woman, and I completely forget that a sect is actually very powerful. The system gave him inspiration, and he put a return visit to my Ahua palace on the agenda. However, before that, he had to make good arrangements to allow the disciples to improve their cultivation faster. No matter how powerful my Ahua palace is, it is only an external force. If you want to avoid being bullied in Zingayan continent, you have to rely on yourself and your disciples. Chapter 469 Yao Mengying's Choice. The validity period of the exemption card is 3 months. Now a month has passed, so Jun Changxiao is a little anxious. How should he face a 6th-class county and 2 4th-class sects? Find Changwenhang? No. Xianyu Academy has no right to interfere in the affairs between counties. Jun Changxiao quite agrees with the suggestions given by the system. After all, the only force he can rely on at present is my Ahua palace, which he has a little friendship with. Next, he will settle the affairs of the sect properly and allocate a large number of natural spirit stones to the disciples so that they must improve faster. To be honest, even if there is only the supply of spirit gathering array and key gathering pill, the disciples of Tegu sect will break through very quickly. With the supply of spirit stones, the speed will be unimaginable. 2 months. There must be earth-shaking changes. After all the arrangements were made, Jun Changxiao took Xia Longlong and rode the Hurricane Wolf King to leave Tegu sect. He didn't take his disciples with him because he wanted them to break through faster. Everyone did not disappoint Master Jun. They practiced the Kinksanju every moment, and the martial spirit of the whole sect became more intense. Senior Sister Liu Yao Mengying sat in the cafeteria with a small face and said enviously, I also want to practice martial arts like my senior brother. The disciples of the Tigu sect are all practicing, but she is the only one who does nothing every day. The main reason is that she is too young. Master Jun means that she can start to learn martial arts when she is 12 or 13 years old. Liu Wanshi smiled and said, you can go to the second senior brother and let him teach you the martial arts. The master said that I'm too young and not suitable for practice for the time being. Yao Mengying pouted. Liu Wanshi put down the spoon, blinked her eyes, and smiled. Second senior brother is easy to talk to. I will take you to find him. So, she led Yao Mengying to find Li Qingyang and told him the purpose of their visit. Our chief steward Li is indeed easy to talk to, and he can't resist Liu Wanshi's soft and hard persuasion, and finally agreed to let the little girl into the martial arts pavilion to choose the martial arts. Mengying. Liu Wanshi accompanied him into the Gongfa pavilion, holding the Yijinjing, and said with a smile, you can practice the mind method first, and then practice martial arts after your meridians are opened. Yes. Yao Mengying nodded, but accepted the secret book, set her eyes on the shelf on the far right, and then walked over unconsciously. All the martial arts on it were evil. These were obtained by Jun Changxiao from several evil sects that he destroyed. He did not agree with the distinction between good and evil, so he placed the evil mind method in the Gongfa pavilion. If the disciples had talent in this area, they could also practice it. The word evil does not lie in practice, but in human nature. Even if you practice martial arts that are open and above board, but do some things that hurt the world behind your back, that is not good, that is evil. Although evil practitioners are a bit extreme in practice, they are definitely not evil if they do not do things that are unscrupulous. Of course. Sect Master Jun repeatedly warned that if you do not have the talent for evil practice, you must not practice at will. In the Tigu sect, Jiangzi is the only one who has the talent for evil practice, and now he has basically given up and put all his thoughts on systematic martial arts. Senior Sister Liu Yao Mengying picked up a book of evil martial arts and scratched her head, saying, can I practice this kind of martial arts? Liu Wanshi was surprised and said, you want to practice evil martial arts? No. She shook her head hurriedly and said, the headmaster said that evil martial arts cannot be practiced casually, otherwise it is easy to go astray. Yao Mengying hugged the secret book tightly in her arms and pleaded, Senior Sister Liu, I really want to learn this. Liu Wanshi was silent for a while and said, in this case, then learn it. She was not very old and did not know much about the consequences of practicing evil martial arts. If Li Qingyang came with her, he would definitely try his best to stop the little sister from practicing evil martial arts. Thank you, Senior Sister Liu. Yao Mengying smiled brightly, then selected several kinds of evil martial arts, and left happily with Liu Wanshi. The path of evil cultivation is full of dangers. This little lolly, whether the choice today is right or wrong, no one can tell clearly. The next day, Li Qingyang came to the Gongfa pavilion for routine inspection and found the record of Yao Mengying's selection of martial arts. He was shocked and said, how come that little girl picked up the evil martial arts? Beep. He hurried to the cafeteria and asked anxiously, where is the junior sister? Liu Wanshi said, she is practicing martial arts in the inner courtyard. Li Qingyang hurried to the inner courtyard, but the room where Yao Mengying lived was locked, and there was no response, no matter how he knocked. Lu Qian happened to come and saw the second junior brother with an anxious face. She asked, what's wrong? Li Qingyang hurriedly told him that Yao Mengying had chosen the evil martial arts. Bang! The door collapsed, and the cold air filled the air. Li Qingyang's mouth twitched, thinking, Senior Sister, you are too violent. Lu Qian retracted her palm and walked in. She saw Yao Mengying lying on the ground. She waved her jade hand, picked her up, and walked towards the medicine hall. Oh no, the junior sister fainted. What's the situation? I heard from senior brother Li that it seems that she has practiced evil martial arts. Upon hearing the news, the disciples of the Tigu sect went to the medicine hall. Woo woo woo. In the medicine hall, Liu Wanshi burst into tears and kept blaming herself. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let my junior sister choose evil martial arts. Girl, stop crying. Elder Wenny shouted softly, one hand still on the pulse of the unconscious Yao Mengying, checking why she had fainted for no reason. Liu Wanshi hurriedly stopped crying. Strange, strange. After the diagnosis, Elder Wei was puzzled and said, the meridians are fine, the breath is stable, why did she faint? Jiangzi, who was standing next to her, said, could it be that she got a stitch in the side from practicing evil martial arts? It's very likely. Elder Wei could only think so. Hoo hoo. At this moment, a dark breath suddenly emerged from the unconscious Yao Mengying's body. Old Wen's face changed, and he hurriedly took 2 steps back, saying in surprise, this is. Jiangzi also widened his eyes. Whoosh. The black ink-like attribute was still spreading, and then completely enveloped Yao Mengying. The medicine hall was filled with a murderous aura, which made Li Qingyang, Liu Wanshi and others shudder. Old Wen and Jiangzi's eyes changed, and there were turbulent waves in their hearts. Yao Mengying, who was enveloped by the devil's aura, gradually rose and hung in the air, and her whole body seemed to be swallowed by darkness. A few minutes later, the strange aura all poured into Yao Mengying's body, and she fell on the bed again. The repressive murderous aura, as the dark aura dissipated inward, everything returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. Old Wenny. Li Qingyang hurriedly said, what's going on? Old Wenny was silent. Jiangzi, who was standing next to him, was also silent. What's going on? Liu Wanshi also asked. She didn't care about the dark aura, but whether Yao Mengying was okay. Elder Jiang. After a while, Elder Wei said, you have practiced in the evil sect, so you should understand the situation. Jiangzi nodded and said very seriously, if I'm not mistaken, this little girl has awakened her innate demon body. Chapter 470, Heaven and Earth will not perish, demonic path will last forever. Evil cultivation and demon cultivation. These are 2 extreme professions in the Xinjiang continent. The evil cultivation method is nothing more than using unorthodox methods to take advantage of opportunities. Demon cultivation is different. They cultivate real magic skills and absorb the magic energy existing between heaven and earth. If we use a metaphor, evil cultivation is equivalent to martial arts cultivation, and demon cultivation is equivalent to sword cultivation. Both are extremely rare. It is said that there were many demon cultivators in the Xinjiang continent 10,000 years ago, and there were also many demon sects that could compete with the top sects. However, the way demon cultivators cultivate is more extreme than that of evil cultivators, so the major forces that claim to be righteous united to issue a demon killing order to prevent future generations from being deceived. It was a war that lasted for 100 years. It is said that even the martial emperor participated in it. People in later generations defined the events of that period as a battle between righteousness and evil. There were so many righteous masters that the demon sect was outnumbered and was gradually eradicated. Today, there is no demon sect in the entire continent. Of course, if you don't cut the grass at the root, it will grow again in the spring breeze. There are still many demon cultivators who survived. They either live in seclusion in the mountains or hide their identities and live in the Xinjiang continent. The Demon Slayer order is still valid. All decent people, once they find the existence of demon cultivators and demon sects, must go all out to eliminate them. Therefore, every once in a while, there will be news in the martial arts world that a certain demon cultivator or demon sect was discovered and then surrounded and suppressed by various masters. Why do we say this? Because Yao Mengying awakened the innate demon body. People with this physique must be demon cultivators, and they are the top among demon cultivators. Old Wei frowned and said, 10,000 years ago, the leader of the Demon Emperor sect, the Demon Emperor, was a congenital demon body. With his own strength, he fought against the 9 martial emperors, and was said to be the strongest in Xinjiang continent. I've heard of it too. Jiangzi said, it's a pity that, even though the Demon Emperor's cultivation was unprecedented, he was still unable to defeat many fists with 2 fists, and was finally wiped out by the 9 martial emperors on the Demon Mountain. Li Qingyang and others had never heard of these things, but they were also amazed that one person could fight against 9 emperors. This was definitely a super existence that only people could look up to. By the way, was Yi Xingqian one of the 9 martial emperors back then? No. He was able to become one of the 9 emperors because of the demon emperor. Because although the other party died in the demon mountain in the end, he dragged 2 martial emperors to be buried with him, so that Yi Xingqian could feel the destiny of heaven and earth, and enter the martial emperor. The ancient emperors fought for hegemony, and divided Xingyao continent into 13 states. There was a certain restriction in this world, and only 9 people could ascend to the throne and enjoy the worship of all living beings. When the martial emperor falls, the emperor's luck will scatter in the world, looking for the most suitable martial artist to take over. Yi Xingqian is the new martial emperor who reached the top after the war between good and evil. So, what about those who didn't become martial emperor? They also have the opportunity to become martial emperor, but they must challenge the 9 superiors, and if they win, they will take their place. It is very unrealistic for the martial saint to fight the martial emperor. Therefore, no one has been able to shake the 9 martial emperors since ancient times, and they can only wait for them to fall. Perhaps the world can no longer bear the war of the emperors, so it has blocked the way to become a martial emperor, but there are exceptions, that is, the demon cultivator who does not take the ordinary path. 10,000 years ago, a peerless genius was born in the demon cultivator. With an innate demon body, after hundreds of years of cultivation, he broke the shackles of heaven and earth, became the demon emperor, and single-handedly created the famous demon emperor sect. We must line up to succeed the martial emperor. But you can ignore the rules of heaven and earth and break through to a higher level. How can this work? Therefore, the martial artists of the Xinjiang continent united and launched a demon slaying order. Although they were under the slogan of slaying demons and eliminating evil, they were actually worried that, if they let it grow, it would bring disaster to martial arts practitioners. It was no longer important who was right or wrong about what happened thousands of years ago. What was important was that before the demon emperor died, he looked up to the sky and laughed, saying, "As long as the world is immortal, the way of evil will last forever. This emperor will plant the seeds of the innate demon body in the world. If he awakens one day, he will surely revive the glory of our demon sect." The voice contained the supreme divine power and carried a majestic demonic aura. Not only did it ripple across the entire sky, it also enveloped the entire continent, disturbing the minds of living beings. According to historical records, this was the magical power that the demon emperor used before his death, planting his innate demon body in the hearts of the world, until one day it sprouted, bloomed, and bore fruit. As long as the world is immortal, the way of evil will last forever. This sentence became the spiritual pillar for the magic practitioners who survived by chance. They were also waiting for the awakening of the innate demon body, because that would be their hope, to revive the demon sect. More than 1,000 years after the fall of the demon emperor, an ordinary boy walked out of the mountains. He accidentally awakened his innate demon body, and embarked on the path of demon cultivation. This is definitely the fate of the protagonist. Unfortunately, the identity of the demon cultivator was exposed, and he was hunted down by the righteous, and finally died. In the following years, 7 more innate demon bodies appeared one after another. Some of them died in their growth, and some gathered the surviving demon cultivators to strengthen the demon sect, but the matter was exposed and eradicated. Because innate demon bodies appear every once in a while, there are detailed records in history books. Wei Lao and Jiangzi have naturally heard of it. When Yao Mengying was filled with demonic energy, it was judged that this was definitely a sign of the awakening of the innate demon body as recorded. Trouble, trouble. Wei Lao frowned and said, "This girl has an innate demon body, which makes her the public enemy of the entire Xinjiang continent." Jiangzi held his chin and murmured, "The first 8 people were all men, but I didn't expect the 9th person to be a woman, and she was still a little girl of 7 or 8 years old." Li Qingyang also realized that the awakening of the innate demon body of the little junior sister was not a good thing, so he hurriedly said, "Wei Lao, we have to notify the head of the sect quickly. Contact with the sound transmission technique." Wei Lao said. Jiangzi hurriedly displayed his martial arts, but unfortunately, our sect master Jun had already left far away and could not be contacted at all. Weileo said, the girl's awakening of the innate demon body did not cause much abnormality, and the outside world may not know it. Let's not spread the news, and wait for the sect master to come back to discuss it. Okay. Jiangzi agreed. Let's talk about Jun Changxiao. He rode the Hurricane Wolf King for about a day, and entered the 5th class county, where Maihua Palace was located, and entered a city called Happy City. The 5th class county is powerful. Even this ordinary city, no matter the scale, number of people or even strong people, is not comparable to Qingyang City. Sect Master Jun was dumbfounded as soon as he came in. Because, on the main street of Happy City, you can see luxuriously decorated places of entertainment every few steps, and beautiful women standing at the door are flirting with you. This place is really a happy place for men. Jun Changxiao shook his head, ignored the calls of the beauties, and chose an inn to stay. Have you heard about it? The remnants of the demon sect secretly returned to Demon Mountain, and met with strong men from various sects. The two sides fought fiercely for a long time. This is a big deal. Of course I heard about it. The man who claims to be the 36th sect master of the Demon Emperor sect, whose strength has just entered the Martial Emperor realm, dares to fight with several strong men from first-rate sects. He is really overestimating himself. Jun Changxiao was sitting by the window, listening to their discussions. He couldn't help but said in his heart, the Martial Emperor is just a freshman in their eyes. This 5th class county martial artist is really awesome. He just listened casually, then rested for a night, and continued his journey, and finally arrived at the foot of the mountain, where Maihua Palace was located. Chapter 471 Visiting Maihua Palace. Maihua Palace is located on Miling Peak of Maihua Mountain. From a distance, this peak looks like a graceful girl, so it is named after the word Miling. It is a coincidence. The first palace master of Maihua Palace came here and valued this feature, so he established a sect and built a sect that only recruits female disciples. In the hearts of countless men, Maihua Palace is definitely a holy place because the female disciples inside are all beautiful. It's a pity. The sect has a rule that men are not allowed to enter. So one day entering Maihua Palace to visit the flowers has become the dream of many men. Some people will not turn back until they hit the south wall. Even though they know that they cannot enter, they still come to Maihua Mountain, hoping to see the beautiful female disciples. Look. At the foot of Maihua Mountain, there are many romantic and suave young men and famous young men. Jun Changxiao walked over and looked at the 30 or 50 young talents gathered and couldn't help but secretly said, it's quite lively. Swish. A young man dressed as a scholar walked over, opened his folding fan in a chic manner, and said with a smile, my friend, are you also here to show off the style of the disciples of Maihua Palace? Well, I guess so. Jun Changxiao's return visit to Maihua Palace this time naturally wanted to see how different the disciples of the sect were from the 5-rate Shengquan sect. The scholar looked him up and down and said, judging from the way my friend is dressed, he should not be from a famous family. Jun Changxiao really wanted to say, whether I'm a famous family or not has nothing to do with you. But when you are out, it is better to keep a low profile. So he responded, ordinary family. The scholar closed his folding fan, pointed at the young men in front of him, and said, they are all sons of famous families. Friends come from ordinary families. When they come to Maihua Palace, they will definitely not be looked at by the beautiful disciples. Oh. Jun Chang smiled and said, from what you said, they came to Maihua Palace to win the beauty's smile? Friends? The scholar asked back. No. Jun Chang smiled and said truthfully, I'm here to visit Maihua Palace. The voice was a bit loud, and the young men standing nearby cast surprised eyes after hearing it. Did I hear it right? This guy is going to visit Maihua Palace? The scholar was also startled, and then laughed. Maihua Palace has never welcomed men. Are you kidding me? When you visit friends? Is this guy's brain okay? If Maihua Palace can be placed at will, why would we stand at the foot of the mountain? It seems that he must be a country bumpkin who walked out of the mountains and has never heard of the rules of Maihua Palace. Everyone whispered, and their words were full of contempt. Jun Changxiao was a little speechless. Feeling, you are not qualified to enter, so I have to follow you. You are not qualified? They are just a group of idle and very bored rich young men. Master Jun did not argue with them, but continued to walk forward. Come down, come down. Suddenly, someone shouted. Jun Changxiao looked up and saw more than a dozen disciples of Myoho Palace walking down the stairs. It must be said that they are slim and good looking, which can easily attract the attention of men. Walking in front is the disciple named Lia, who often accompanies Zijingsun. Senior sister. A female disciple whispered, a group of scoundrels have gathered at the foot of the mountain. Should we drive them all away? Lia said indifferently, they are just flies. Just ignore them. More than a dozen disciples of Myoho Palace came down the mountain, which immediately attracted the attention of the young masters, and they all looked up. Flowers have intentions, but flowing water is ruthless. They didn't even look at them, treating them as air. The young masters who came here were already used to it, so they didn't care about being ignored, but slowly appreciated the disciples of Myoho Palace. Young Master Su, I think the disciple walking in the front has the most extraordinary appearance. The second to last female disciple is petite and cute. She is the type that this young master likes the most. I think the second one is good. Everyone whispered. Jun Changxiao shook his head and thought to himself, have they never seen a woman? Sect Master Jun didn't know. The disciples of Myoho Palace practiced in the Myoho Mountain, which is full of spiritual energy, for many years. Over time, they formed a unique temperament that other women could not compare to. Young masters have naturally seen many beauties, but compared with the disciples of Myoho Palace, they are really vulgar. Not long after, Lia led her fellow disciples down the mountain, continuing to ignore the young masters on the roadside, each of them like a proud peacock. Miss Lia. Jun Chang smiled and said, we meet again. The young man standing next to him was startled, and then he was furious, and wanted to kill. This guy actually took the initiative to say hello. If he angered the other party, he would be killed together with everyone else. In the past, someone tried to get close to him in a mean way, and the result was that outsiders were not allowed to approach Myoho Mountain for more than half a year. As soon as Master Jun said this, strong anger came from all directions, and he was quite surprised and asked inwardly, what's going on? Hearing someone calling her nickname, Lia's eyebrows frowned, but when she finished listening to the words, she was startled, turned her head and looked over, and said in surprise, it's you. Everyone was dumbfounded. The disciples of Myoho Palace knew this guy. Jun Changxiao said, Miss Lia, am I surprised? Lia frowned and said, why are you here? I'm here to pay a return visit. Jun Changxiao said. Lia was silent. Of course she remembered the agreement that the palace master made with Jun Changxiao and Tegu sect, but she didn't expect it to come so soon. What? Jun Changxiao said with a smile. Are you not welcome? Humph. Lia snorted coldly and said, since you are here to pay a return visit, my Myoho Palace will naturally welcome you. Then, she made a gesture and said, please come in. Hearing the words welcome and please come in, the young masters standing nearby were stunned and even wondered if they had heard it wrong. They did not hear it wrong, because they saw with their own eyes that Jun Changxiao climbed the stairs under the guidance of Lia and other disciples. Oh my god. Who is that guy? He is qualified to enter Myoho Palace. From what I saw just now, it seems that he has an old friendship with the disciples of Myoho Palace. Everyone talked about it, their eyes full of envy. Everyone. Jun Changxiao climbed the mountain and waved his hand, saying, I'll go up first, you can continue to watch from below. Damn it. You looked down on me just now, so I have to stimulate you. Jun Changxiao's face slapping behavior is really a bit childish and childish. What? In the study, Zijingsun stood up and said happily, Master Jun is here to pay a return visit? Yes. Lia said, the disciple has arranged for him to stay in the west wing. In her heart, she underestimated and said, my palace master, that guy is here to pay a return visit. You don't have to be so excited. Lia. Zijingsun hurriedly combed her hair and clothes and said in a panic, should I change my clothes and dress up properly? Chapter 470 to the Weird Elders. Jun Changxiao was arranged in the west wing. This is a separate area, with only him, as if he was isolated from the world. The environment is not bad, and the spiritual energy is abundant. Jun Changxiao, who was sitting in the small pavilion, felt the spiritual energy a little, and murmured, "It is worthy of being a fourth-rate sect." As he spoke, he released his spiritual thoughts and spread them to the surroundings. My Opera Palace is very large, with magnificent buildings and a heavy momentum. It is a sect with rich heritage at first glance. But there are not too many disciples. Under the spread of Jun Changxiao's spiritual thoughts, there are only 20,000 to 30,000. Because they mainly accept female disciples, it is normal that there are few people. Although there are few disciples in my Opera Palace, their strength is not bad. Martial masters can be seen everywhere. Even martial masters are not rare. In the outer courtyard hall, there are several martial kings. Judging from their clothes, they should be elders. There are also martial kings in fifth-rate sects. It is not surprising that there are so many fourth-rate sects. Jun Changxiao murmured, "Palace Master Z is only at the level of Wu Zhang. Can she control so many Wu Wang?" In his opinion, Xi Jingxuan is just a weak woman with eye problems. It would be difficult for her to convince the public to control such a powerful fourth-rate sect. The system said, "Does the host have anything to do with whether she can control it?" Jun Changxiao ignored it and wanted to continue to spy. As a result, he found that there were some restrictions in some places that could not be penetrated by spiritual thoughts. The system said, "Every force has an unknown side. It is very rude for the host to spy recklessly." That's right. Jun Changxiao retracted his spiritual thoughts. At this moment, the Wu Wang of my Opera Palace seemed to have spied on him. They released their spiritual thoughts and completely enveloped him, exuding an unfriendly atmosphere. Jun Changxiao was embarrassed. Fortunately, the elders of my Opera Palace didn't care about him because he was a guest. After a slight warning, they withdrew. Master Jun. Leah walked in and said indifferently, "The palace master invites you." My Opera Palace hall. 8 elders sat in the first row. Most of them were over 50 years old. Some looked old, some still had charm, and the aura they exuded was all at the level of martial king. As soon as Jun Changxiao came in, everyone's spiritual thoughts pressed over, with a hint of displeasure between their brows. It was unreasonable for a young man to come in, and he was unscrupulously releasing spiritual thoughts to spy in the sect, which must have made them even more unhappy. Master Jun. An old woman sitting to the right of the palace master's seat said lightly, "Young and promising. Her name is Changsan Fanghua, the current chief elder of my Opera Palace. Her strength has reached the peak of the martial king. Most of the internal affairs of the sect are presided over by her. She is the person Xi Jingxuan values the most. The second elder's cultivation is also at the peak of the martial king. She sat on the left side of the chief elder. Her name is Leng Xingyu, a beautiful middle-aged woman. However, when she looked at sect leader Jun, she had a hint of displeasure and said, "Sect leader Jun, I wonder what the purpose of your visit is. It was your palace master who asked me to return the visit, and now I'm here to ask what the matter is. This is a bit fucked up." Jun Changxiao muttered in his heart, but still smiled and said, "I've heard for a long time that my Opera Palace is one of the most famous sects in the world. I came here today to visit and broaden my horizons. I thought you were here to challenge them." Changsan Fanghua said. Leng Xingyu said, "Sect leader Jun first challenged Heoki sect, then challenged Shengquan sect, and later destroyed the 4 evil sects in Huaihang County. He has been very arrogant recently. Do these 2 people have a problem with me? Are they talking in a weird way? Or do these female martial artists who practice martial arts for many years have endocrine disorders, just like Master Michu?" Jun Changxiao put his hands behind his back and said with a smile, "The purpose of my Tegu sect is that, if others don't offend me, I won't offend others. Those forces that were destroyed are nothing but their own faults." The elders of my Opera Palace cast contemptuous glances at him one after another. This is definitely not because the protagonist is born with a sarcastic face, but because the people in my Opera Palace have a strong aversion to men. Even if other male compatriots come, they will be treated like this. As a keyboard warrior, Jun Changxiao is confident that he can fight them for 300 rounds, but thinking that he came here to make friends, he smiled awkwardly. "Master Jun." Changsan Fanghua said lightly, My Opera Palace has never entertained men, so you'd better go down the mountain today." Jun Changxiao immediately became angry. He said coldly, I came here as scheduled, and I didn't even see Palace Master Z, and you started to chase people away. Is this the way to entertain guests in my palace? I see that you are women, so I won't give you ordinary knowledge. Are you giving me face? Changxiao Fanghua said in a deep voice, Master Jun, please pay attention to your words and your tone. This is my tone. Jun Changxiao got angry and said, if you don't like it, you can cover your ears. How dare you? Leng Xingyu shouted coldly. The elders present also stared at him angrily. The atmosphere in the hall suddenly became serious. With so many martial kings staring at him angrily, Sect Master Jun was not afraid, but said coldly, Palace Master Z, your Myoho Palace doesn't seem to welcome me, so I'll take my leave first. Swish. After saying that, he waved his sleeves and turned to leave. Sect Master Jun, wait a minute. Zi Jingxuan's voice came from the side door of the hall. She was wearing a clean long dress, walking in lotus steps, and was supported by Leah. She was originally a stunning beauty, and now she put on light makeup. She looked more like a fairy who was not stained by the dust of the world. Palace Master. The elders who were originally extremely cold hurriedly stood up and saluted respectfully, with awe in their eyes. Elders. Zi Jingxuan stopped at her seat and gently reprimanded. Sect Master Jun is a distinguished guest invited by this palace. You should not be too rude. Yes. Everyone responded in unison. Jun Changxiao was quite surprised that a group of martial kings were so respectful to a martial master, and secretly thought, this woman can't be judged by appearance alone. Master Jun. Zi Jingxuan smiled and said, I'm sorry for offending you just now. I apologize on their behalf. Please don't be offended. The elders and others frowned. I heard from Leah that the palace master cares about this kid very much. Now it seems that it is true. That's right. Jun Changxiao turned around and said, if you are so polite like Palace Master Z, I will definitely be friendly. Zi Jingxuan sat down. In this occasion, she did not look like a weak woman, but exuded the aura of a long-time superior. After all, she is the palace master of a fourth-rate sect, so she naturally has the majesty of a palace master. Jun Changxiao was secretly surprised and said, it's completely different from being in Huoshan. Master Jun. Zi Jingxuan said, I heard that there have been frequent wars in Yangzhou in the southwest recently. Qingyang County where your Tigu sect is located has not been affected, right? To be honest, compared to the way she had just shown when she learned that Jun Changxiao was coming, she was like a completely different person. I was affected. Jun Changxiao said helplessly, not long ago, Zhejiang County attacked us. Zi Jingxuan said, if that's the case, why do you still have time to visit my Myoho Palace? Jun Changxiao glanced at the elders present and said, Palace Master Z, I have an important matter. I wonder if you can ask others to leave for a while. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473. What's going on? How big of a matter is it that requires a discussion with the palace master alone? In my opinion, that guy deliberately sent us away so that he could be alone with the palace master. From his appearance, this guy must be a playboy who flirts with women. I'm afraid that the palace master is weak-willed and will be bewitched by him. Outside the main hall, the elders of Myoho Palace were discussing worriedly. Changxiao Fanghua and Leng Xingyu looked unhappy. They didn't like Jun Changxiao, and now they felt that being alone with the palace master was not a good thing. Grand Elder, Leng Xingyu said, Leah is right. The palace master may really have feelings for that guy. We can't just watch and watch. We must stop it. Changxiao Fanghua said, you know the palace master's personality. How can we stop it? Zi Jingxuan has absolute authority in Myoho Palace. Although they are martial kings and elders, they can only obey orders and dare not disobey. Leng Xingyu said, if it really doesn't work, ask the Grand Elder to come forward. Every sect has some of the remaining old masters, who are called Grand Elders. Kangshan Sect and Shengquan Sect also have Grand Elders, whose cultivation has reached the level of martial king, but because they are devoted to practicing martial arts, they are in seclusion all year round, and they will only come out if something big happens in the sect. Zhejiang County came to mess up the scene. If Jun Changxiao didn't come to kill him, the Grand Elder of Kangshan sect would definitely show up. 6th-rate sects must have martial master at the level of martial master. The most important indicator for becoming a sect from a sect is to have a martial king level master. What about the indicators for 4th-rate sects? Not only must there be more than 5 martial kings, but there must also be a martial emperor. Therefore, the Grand Elder of Mayahua Palace, who has been in seclusion all year round, is a martial emperor level master. And he is not the only one. The previous palace master's cultivation is also a martial emperor, but after supporting Xi Jinxuan to take the throne, he left Mayahua Palace to travel around. There is only one martial emperor in Lingyuan sect of Zhejiang County, and 2 in Mayahua Palace. This is the difference between the 4th-rate sects in the 6th-class county and the 4th-rate sects in the 5th-class county. Of course, it does not mean that high-level sects must have high-level masters. Some sects are declining, and their strength is not as good as before. They may not have masters connected with their level. Changsan Fanghua said. The Grand Elder said before her retreat that, if there is nothing important, don't disturb her retreat. Leng Xinggai was silent. If the Grand Elder does not come forward, no one can persuade the palace master. I'm sorry. In the hall, Xi Jinxuan said weakly, they don't like men, so they are hostile to Master Jun. After the elders left, she seemed to have become a different person. The majesty of the palace master disappeared, and her willow eyebrows were slightly wrinkled, which made people feel pity. This change is too fast. Jun Changxiao muttered in his heart, and felt more and more that Xi Jinxuan was not simple. Palace Master Xi. He smiled. I'm not a person who bears grudges, so I won't take it to heart. That's good. Xi Jinxuan breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Master Jun, what important things do you have? It was hard to imagine that this was the palace master who had just sat in the first seat with a serious face. Jun Chang smiled and said, Palace Master Xi, I recently met a master who is proficient in the art of medicine and has made great achievements in treating eye diseases. Xi Jinxuan hurriedly asked, who is it? Where is he? This senior likes to travel around the world. I only met him once, and now I don't know where he is. Jun Chang laughed and lied. Xi Jinxuan suddenly became depressed. But, Jun Chang laughed and changed the subject, saying, before leaving, the master gave me a pill, saying that it can cure difficult and complicated diseases. I'm not sick, so I thought of Palace Master Xi's eye disease, so I came to visit you, hoping to help you see the light again. This nonsense made the system admire it. Xi Jinxuan was not very excited. Over the years, she has visited many famous doctors and taken many elixirs, but her eye disease has never been cured, and she has long been discouraged. However, she is very grateful that Master Jun thought of her and came to Mayahua Palace for this matter. Can I feel the elixir first? Xi Jinxuan said. Sure. Jun Changxiao put the first grade elixir on the table. Xi Jinxuan touched it randomly, took the elixir in her hand, and said in surprise, the elixir contains such a rich attribute of heaven and earth. She can feel it? Jun Changxiao said. According to the senior master, this elixir was extracted by him from hundreds of medicinal materials. Xi Jinxuan smiled and said, it won't be poisonous, right? Jun Changxiao was silent. This woman is quite cautious. However, if someone sends her elixir and eats it without any doubt, what's the difference between that and a fool? Master Jun. Xi Jinxuan said, I want to test this pill. Okay. Jun Chang said with a smile. Xi Jinxuan said loudly, 5th Elder, come in. The 5th Elder, who was knowledgeable in pills, came in and took the pill in his hand. After careful analysis, he said, Palace Master, this pill has the effect of nourishing the body. The system pill only gave this explanation. The more magical effect was beyond her understanding and imagination. After the 5th Elder left, Xi Jinxuan apologized. Master Jun, although I trust you very much, there are some things that I have to consider carefully. I understand. Jun Chang said with a smile. Xi Jinxuan picked up the pill and opened her cherry-like mouth. The pill melted in her mouth and turned into a stream of pure energy that instantly filled her body. Jun Changxiao watched intently, thinking to himself, it must be effective. Curing Zijingsuan's eye disease is equivalent to earning a big favor, asking her to send people to Qingyang County, which should be able to deter the strong men of the two sects in Zhejiang County. Outside the hall, when the fifth elder just walked out, Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingyu hurried over and said, "What's going on inside?" "The palace master asked me to verify a pill." "Pill?" Everyone looked confused. The fifth elder said, "This pill should be given by that kid. Judging from the breath it exudes, it has the effect of curing diseases." "The effect of curing diseases?" Changsun Fanghe frowned slightly and said, "Could it be that the guy wants to cure the palace master's eye disease?" "Impossible." Leng Xingyu said, "The palace master has this disease since birth. Many famous doctors are helpless. How can he cure it? In my opinion, that kid just found a pill at random to win the favor of the palace master." An elder said coldly, "We can't let the palace master have too much contact with him, lest he gets too deeply involved." Changsun Fanghe frowned. Hoo-hoo. At this moment, a strong and cold aura suddenly emerged in the hall, causing everyone's faces to change suddenly. "Not good." Leng Xingyu said in shock, "The palace master has gone berserk." Swish. Swish. Changsun Fanghe and others didn't care about anything and rushed in. As soon as they came in, they saw Zijingsuan standing in the first place. Her body was filled with a blood-red aura, and her empty eyes flashed with a gloomy light. She didn't look like a human, but a killing god. "Everyone," Jun Changxiao said in confusion, "what's going on?" Chapter 474 Dual Personality. Zijingsuan, who was standing in front of the chair, was surrounded by red attributes. Although the one eye that was revealed was empty, it exuded endless murderous intent. That feeling was like a ferocious beast that had lost consciousness, which made people's hair stand up and their scalps numb. Jun Changxiao was immediately stunned. How could a cute girl suddenly become so scary? The elders of Myotha Palace who had just entered almost couldn't help cursing when they heard him ask what was going on. In the hall, only you and the palace master were there. Now that she is running wild, you ask us what's going on. Who should we ask? Jun Changxiao. Changsun Fanghe said angrily, "What's going on?" The fifth elder seemed to think of something and said, "Did the palace master enter the runaway state because of the pill he took just now?" "Damn it." Changsun Fanghe glared at Jun Changxiao fiercely and said, "Form a formation to stabilize the palace master." Swish. Swish. As they spoke, Leng Xingyu and several elders rushed over with big strides, quickly making strange seals with their hands, leaving a faint light wherever they stepped. "Die," Zijingsuan said in a low voice. Her hollow eyes showed a stronger killing intent. She waved her small hand, and the red attribute gathered around her body rushed over like a flood. "Be careful." Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingyu stretched out their palms, and the strong spiritual energy burst out, instantly fighting against the incoming red attribute. Buzz. Buzz. The three forces collided crazily, forming energy ripples in an instant, rushing towards all directions in the hall, and the furniture was instantly shattered. The system said, "The power is very strong, not inferior to the two peak martial kings." "Fuck." Jun Changxiao said in surprise, "So powerful." In his opinion, Zijingsuan was only a martial arts master, and he didn't expect that she would burst out with such terrifying strength. No wonder she was the master of a fourth-rate sect, and no wonder several elders obeyed her orders. It's just, the system quickly analyzed, at this moment, she is in a state of rampage, and has lost her rationality. Jun Changxiao could also see it. In particular, the hollow eyes were full of murderous intent, and she would definitely kill anyone she met. Could it be that this powerful force came from rampage? Boom. At this moment, Zijingsuan's red attribute took an absolute advantage and directly repelled the power of the two peak martial kings. Thump. 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 Changsun Fanghe and Leng Xingyu took several steps back, their faces extremely ugly. Swish. 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 Several other elders had already rushed over. They turned around with strange body movements, and the flowing light instantly filled their bodies and intertwined together to form a net of heaven and earth, trapping Zijingsuan in it. Boom. Boom. The red attribute madly collided with the surroundings, shaking the flowing light barrier and trembling, as if it could collapse at any time. Great Elder, Second Elder. The fifth elder suppressed his boiling blood and said, "Come quickly." Changsan Fanghua and Leng Xingyu strode over, stretched out their palms, and pressed tightly against the barrier. The peak martial king cultivation broke out, and stabilized it in an instant. The elders were relieved. Boom. Boom. Xi Jingxun, who was trapped in it, kept bombarding the barrier, but with 8 martial kings stabilizing the barrier, it was always difficult to break. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched slightly. "Who can tell me what's going on?" "Great Elder, I think this is a huge misunderstanding." Jun Changxiao, standing in the iron prison, said with a look of collapse. "The 8 elders of my Alpha Palace subdued Xi Jingxun, and then arrested him. The whole process was completely confusing." Changsan Fanghua put on the chain and said coldly, "You'd better pray that the palace master is fine. Otherwise, don't think about leaving my Alpha mountain alive." Jun Changxiao was speechless. "I came here with good intentions to deliver medicine, but ended up being a prisoner. It's really not easy to be a saint." The system was very puzzled and said, "Even if the first grade elixir has no effect, it shouldn't cause people to lose their rationality. Damn it." Jun Changxiao sat on the wooden bed and said, "I was screwed by you. Why blame me? Didn't you say you came to make friends with my Alpha Palace? Why would I come here, and how could I be locked up in prison? It's not like I put a knife on your neck and forced you to come. Blame you. Don't explain. Don't blame me. Don't explain." They quarreled. In fact, with Jun Changxiao's strength, he could have run away, but if this matter was not figured out, it would be equivalent to offending my Alpha Palace. Speaking of which, thinking about what happened in the hall just now, he murmured, "The way Palace Master Z ran away just now was quite charming." The system was speechless. He was locked up, but he still cared about other people's running away. Is this guy cheap? Sect Master Jun was locked up for 2 days, and no one even brought him food during that time. This made him speechless and said, even if he is a prisoner, he should be given food. Click, click. On the 3rd day, the chains were opened. Changsan Fanghua said unhappily, "The palace master wants to see you." Jun Changxiao got up from the wooden bed and hurriedly asked, "Is Palace Master Z okay?" Changsan Fanghua said coldly, "If the palace master had something wrong, you would have died by now." Jun Changxiao said nothing, and under her guidance, he came to the inner courtyard of my Alpha Palace, and came to the independent courtyard where Xi Jingxun lived. "Master Jun." Just as he was about to go in, Changsan Fanghua said indifferently, "I don't want you to bother the palace master. It's best to leave today." "Oh." Master Jun responded. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw Xi Jingxun sitting in front of the pavilion, her face slightly pale, as if she had just recovered from a serious illness. "Master Jun, are you here?" She heard the noise and spoke softly. Her voice was also very weak, as if she had no strength. First grade spiritual medicine, no effect? Although he had made mental preparations, Jun Changxiao still shook his head and said, "Master Z, I'm really sorry that taking the elixir made you feel uncomfortable." During the days of being detained, he also considered that Xi Jingxun's sudden rampage must be related to taking the first grade spiritual medicine. "Master Jun." Xi Jingxun lowered her head and apologized. "I should be the one to say sorry. No, it's my fault. I believed the charlatan who claimed to be a master of Kehuang." Jun Changxiao said with a smile. Xi Jingxun shook her head and said, "I have lost my rationality more than once or twice, and it just happened that Master Jun encountered it." "More than once or twice?" Jun Changxiao was stunned. Xi Jingxun said bitterly, "To be honest with Master Jun, I not only have an eye disease, but also a strange disease. Whenever I feel depressed, I will lose my rationality and do some cruel things, but I can't remember them after I recover." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched, thinking of how gentle and lovely she is now, and then thinking of the rampage in the hall, the whole body exuding murderous intent, one like an angel, and the other like a devil. He couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "This woman doesn't have a dual personality, right? It's really possible." The system said, "The disciples of my Alpha Palace don't know what a dual personality is. They understand the situation of the palace master, and as long as they see her looking depressed, they will comfort her immediately, to prevent her from going into a rampage state." "Master Jun." Zijingsun forced a smile on her pale face and said, I didn't scare you before, did I? Jun Chang smiled. It's okay, it's okay. Zijingsun whispered, Master Jun, after taking the pill you gave me, When she said this, her little face suddenly turned red, and she said, I seem to see what you look like. Jun Changxiao was stunned and said, is the medicine effective? Zijingsun shook her head and said, I just felt that my field of vision suddenly became bright, and then I lost consciousness. When I woke up, it was still dark around me. That's not right. Jun Changxiao said secretly, since it's bright, it proves that her vision has been restored, which proves that the medicine is effective. Why can't she see again? The system said, her eye disease is a bit tricky. Wait. Jun Changxiao suddenly thought of a very serious question and said, Palace Master Z, you just said that the premise of your loss of rationality was depression? Yes. You were also depressed before. Yes. Why were you depressed? Because. Zijingsun lowered her head and whispered, I saw sect leader Jun. He saw me. He was depressed. Sect leader Jun squatted in the corner, holding his head in his hands, and howled in frustration. How could she be depressed when she saw me like this? Ugly, said the system. Chapter 475 Zijingsun's plan. Jun Changxiao is not ugly, he is handsome. So why did Zijingsun feel depressed and even go berserk? Because in her heart, Jun Changxiao should look like that, not like this. Zijingsun, who was born with eye problems, has never seen a human being, and all her understanding is based on her own fantasy. The Jun Changxiao she imagined has eyes, ears, a nose, and a big head. In short, he has human features, but not human. When Zijingsun regained her eyesight and adapted to the light, she vaguely saw Jun Changxiao's appearance and compared it with her own fantasy. She found that there was a gap, and she was very disappointed. Then, she felt depressed and went berserk. To be honest, Zijingsun, who has never seen a human, must have problems with aesthetics. Jun is by no means an ugly guy, but he just didn't meet her psychological expectations. Ugly. The system's words always echoed in Jun Changxiao's ears, like a sharp sword piercing his heart again and again, causing him to collapse mentally in pain. You can laugh at me. You can humiliate me. You can say that I'm not good at it. However, you cannot question my handsome appearance, which is unforgivable, if it is a sin. Hearing Jun Changxiao's inner thoughts, the system collapsed and said, I have never seen such a shameless person. Master Jun. Zijingsun said weakly, are you okay? This woman has not yet realized that she has brought millions of tons of mental damage to Master Jun because of her depression due to seeing his appearance. Jun Changxiao took a long breath and said, it's okay. Zijingsun smiled and said, Master Jun, thank you for the elixir you gave me. It made me see the light. Although it was only for a moment, I was very happy. She looked very cute when she smiled. She was like an innocent girl who was ignorant of the world. Jun Changxiao said secretly, she has an eye disease and a strange disease. God is so unfair to her. Palace Master Z. Jun Changxiao said with a smile, since you can see the light, the disease may be cured, so you must be full of hope for the future, and face every day happily. Since we know that, if we are depressed, we will lose our rationality, we must encourage her with inspirational chicken soup. Yes. Zijingsun smiled and said, I will. Although it was only a brief moment of light, and she could only vaguely see the environment in the hall and Jun Changxiao, it was enough for her to remember it forever in her heart. Indelible. Master Jun. Zijingsun smiled and said, you came to my Ohua palace, not just to deliver elixirs, right? Jun Changxiao scratched his head and said, Master Z, my Tegu sect has encountered some troubles recently, and I hope your sect can give me help. What trouble? Zijingsun said. Jun Changxiao told her about the invasion of Zhenyang County and the offense against the two fourth-rate sects. What? Zijingsun was surprised. Master Jun killed the king of martial arts? Yes. Jun Chang smiled and said, 3 of them. Zijingsun said in disbelief, has Master Jun already broken through to the king of martial arts? Yes. That's not right. Zijingsun said, even if he really broke through, it's impossible to kill 3 kings in a row. This. Jun Chang smiled and said, I broke through both the sword and the martial arts. His tone was very humble, but for some reason, after he said it, he exuded a strong sense of pretense. Zijingsuan stood up and said in disbelief, Master Jun is the king of sword and martial arts? I remember. She said again, the elders also said that there was a sign of the arrival of the two kings in the sky. Could it be that Master Jun is breaking through? Oh my gosh. The strange phenomenon caused by my breakthrough can be seen in my Ottawa palace. In this case, my great glory has covered the entire Zingayan continent. Oh. I wanted to develop in a low-key manner. Why did it go against my wishes? In this case, let's be high profile. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said coquettishly, yes, the previous natural phenomenon was my breakthrough. Wow. Zijingsuan said, it has been thousands of years since the two kings of sword and martial arts appeared. Master Jun can do it. He is really a dragon among men. If this was said by City Lord Z, Master Jun would definitely not be surprised, but when it was said by a cute girl, he immediately felt very proud. People always have to have a little vanity. If you don't care about anything, and are not moved by anything, you are definitely a saint. However, Zijingsuan said again, Master Jun killed two martial kings from fourth-rate sects. They will definitely not let it go. So, we can only ask for help from Palace Master Z. Jun often smiled. Zijingsuan said, since the Tegu sect is in trouble, I will naturally not sit idly by. This woman was also resolute and decisive. She immediately went to the main hall, summoned all the elders, and informed them of the matter. Changsan Fanghua and Leng Xingai must be against it. In their opinion, it is unwise to make enemies with two fourth-rate sects for the sake of the Tegu sect. Elders. Zijingsuan, who was sitting in the first seat, said, I have made up my mind. Very strong and very stylish. The elders were silent, and could only obey the order of the palace master, to help the Tegu sect. How to help? Zijingsuan not only went there in person, but also brought thousands of disciples, and even the first and second elders would accompany her. This lineup can be called luxurious. Master Jun. Zijingsuan said, I will leave now, and will reach Tegu sect in half a month. Jun Changxiao bowed and said seriously, thank you for your help, Master Z. I will remember this kindness in my heart. If I need my Tegu sect in the future, I will go through fire and water and die for it. Zijingsuan smiled and said, Master Jun taught me martial arts in Huishan, and came thousands of miles to deliver medicine. Now that your sect is in trouble, it is only right to help. I will take my leave first, and wait for Master Z and the sect. Jun Changxiao rode the Hurricane Wolf King, and returned to Tegu sect first. Although Myoho Palace did not send the Martial Emperor, he was also very relieved, because as long as Master Z stood on the tower, he would definitely be a deterrent. Palace Master. After watching Jun Changxiao leave, Changsan Fanghua couldn't help but said, we go to help the Tegu sect. We will not only offend two fourth-rate sects, but also Zhejiang County. The governor of Zhejiang County is a very ambitious person. It is unwise to offend him. Leng Xingai said. Zijingsuan said, I know that the two elders are considering the sect, but have you ever thought that Jun Changxiao is also very ambitious? Changsan Fanghua said lightly, even if the leader of a small sect has ambitions, how can he make waves? Zijingsuan shook her head and said, I will not be wrong. Jun Changxiao and his Tegu sect will definitely play an important role in the Zingayan continent in the future. She didn't see with her eyes, but with her heart. To be precise, going to help in person this time is a bet that she is not wrong, and betting on the future of the Tegu sect. One day, he and his sect have absolute strength, and are based in the Zingayan continent, and Myoho Palace will definitely benefit from it. From being unknown to becoming the most dazzling existence in the martial arts world, challenging the Shengpan sect, fighting the evil sect of Huaiang County, and now breaking through to the double king of sword and martial arts. The elders of Myoho Palace can pretend not to see these things, but Zijingsuan, as the palace master, must see them. She cannot be emotional, but must consider all aspects. Since Jun Changxiao and his sect have great potential, they must definitely make friends. Therefore, Zijingsuan went to help the Tegu sect, not because she had a good impression of Master Jun, but because she had her own considerations and plans. Master Jun. On the way to the Tegu sect, Zijingsuan said secretly, don't let me down. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.